My husband is obsessed and practically addicted to a new trading card game that he's playing, even going as far as finding national recognition from his performance at tournaments he goes to once a month. But I'm at a point where I am starting to slowly burn out as I find myself being the only one raising our 6-year-old daughter. And at this point, I don't know how to get through to him, and I just don't know how to make him stop. Here's what's happening. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Okay, to start things off, my husband and I have been married for 15 years, and we have a 6-year-old daughter together. Throughout our relationship, my husband has always been a gamer, both with trading cards and video games. And on top of that, he's really amazing at them too. The problem is that usually with video games, there's an end or an eventual fizzling out period after a few months or like a year of consistent playing. But it's been 3 years since my husband has started playing this new trading card with no ramp down period in sight. Ever since he learned how to play, he leaves the house to play every single Wednesday from like 4 o'clock until 9 o'clock, Thursday until 9, and then Sunday pretty much all day. He also plays constantly on his phone when he's at work and when he's at home, or he's calling his friend for hours to talk about the game. On top of that, he travels out of state from Thursday until Monday at least once a month with his friends just to play at random tournaments. He also doesn't want me and our daughter to come to any of his gaming things because our daughter distracts him when he plays. He's missed family events and holidays to go to these tournaments, but he doesn't see why I'd be upset at that. Well, today I finally cracked. He spent the last weekend out of town for 4 days at a tournament and then spent all week playing on his phone, practicing at his friend's house and calling his friends for hours to discuss deck building. And after all that, today he played for 14 hours straight at a local card shop. During all of this, I get one text message at like 9 o'clock at night and then a call at 10 o'clock at night saying that he was going to get drinks with his friends. Our daughter was crying in the background because she missed her daddy, and I was audibly overwhelmed. And I just told him I'm stressed out and I'm not okay. But he still spent an extra hour with his friends getting food and drinks while I tried to calm our baby girl down enough to get her to sleep. Now, for a bit of backstory on his side of things, he doesn't have a lot of friends, so having this friend group means a lot to him. And I really just don't want to take away or compromise that. His friends are wonderful and they try to invite us to things when they can, and we, meaning our daughter and I, always go because I want to be supportive. My husband is also amazingly good at this game, so I get why he wants to play. He gets a lot of national recognition for his performance at tournaments and all that stuff. I guess that I'm just feeling a little overwhelmed and overlooked between his full-time job and his favorite game. I don't want him to sacrifice his favorite pastime for me, but I've asked him if he could tone it back just a little bit, like maybe not play as much on his phone while he's at home, and instead spending time with us and try not to travel every single month for like 4 days at a time for tournaments. But anytime I bring this up, it's always met with frustration. Also, I want to add that I might be a bit projecting some of my anger because I used to go rock climbing at the local bouldering gym and he would get mad at me for climbing like 4 to 5 times a week. So eventually I stopped because I didn't like when he kept telling me that I was putting that over spending time with my family. I also have a demanding job that makes me work like over 60 hours a week. So I know it annoys him when I'm working past 5 o'clock. So seriously, be harsh with me, man. Am I really in the wrong here? Am I overreacting in any kind of way? Because I just don't know what to do. Okay, I think honestly that your husband is doing way too much here. Sure, he's really good at this game and he's getting national recognition and it's like, dude, good for you. That's awesome. I have played competitive trading card games in the past as well, and trust me, I totally understand where he's coming from, where you really feel that itch to like compete and go to tournaments and do the best that you can. And this guy's doing this at like a national level. He's getting recognition, like his career as a competitor is popping off. Like, I understand where he's coming from. He probably wants to keep this going and be like, dude, let's see how high this rocket ship can fly. But bro, you've got a family. For reference, this guy is 40 years old, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be playing those games at 40, but if you've got a wife and a 6-year-old daughter, then dude, you gotta like manage your time better. Spending all your time at the card shop practicing and building decks, like there has gotta be some kind of balance here, because otherwise this is obnoxious. This is wildly unfair, and like seriously, he's gotta figure his life out. Like if he was getting actual like revenue and making money from this game, then sure, I mean maybe there's some justifying this, where it's like, okay, he needs to keep his skills sharp and he needs to be like the best in the game because he's raking in the bags of money left and right. But I'm willing to bet that's not happening, and this is just a really passionate hobby, which again, there's nothing wrong with that, but dude, you gotta like manage your time properly, because the way he's doing it right now just doesn't make sense, and it's really just not effective in my opinion. So yeah, your husband's completely out of line. He needs to chill out and like get his priorities right, because he's neglecting the family, and that is super annoying, and I don't blame you for being pissed off. If you like Am I the Jerk and you want to submit your own stories, first off, subscribe to the channel, but also go to AmITheJerk.com/submit. That's the absolute best place on the internet to share your story and share your experience. I'm always looking through those and I love hearing your experiences, so please share them with us. Speaking of sharing something with you, hey, have you checked out Am I the Genius? You need to check them out. They're down below in the description. Please subscribe to them. You will not regret it. We love what they're doing over there, and I think there's a good chance you're going to like them as well. And also, I've noticed lately that a lot of people are saying, I'm first in the video. It's me, I'm first. But for the first time, I've seen someone break the mold and actually be sixth. That's right, Crimson Void said, I'm not even first. I'm not even second, third, fourth, or fifth. I'm the sixth one here, and I'm proud of it. So good for you, Crimson Void, you did it. I don't know what you were trying to accomplish, but you did it, and I'm proud that you set goals and you accomplish it. But without further ado, let's get back to the video and on to the next story. Am I overreacting by ending my engagement to my girlfriend after I found out that she used to sleep with my brother when we were previously broken up? Because right now I'm kind of devastated by this and I've canceled pretty much everything. And at this point I'm not sure if I'm making a mistake or if I'm in the right. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of background. My fiancé and I are both 27 years old and we actually started dating in high school back when we were both 15 years old. It was a typical high school romance as we were pretty much each other's first for everything, and we had initially planned to go to the same college, but at the last second, I got accepted to one of my dream schools after being waitlisted and decided to go there instead. Now, she was pretty upset about this, and it was the main reason we ended up breaking up around the end of senior year. We ended on not the best of terms and went our separate ways for college, and we ended up not speaking for the entire time we were at college. Well, fast forward about 6 years, and we ended up in the same city when we were both 24 years old, about that time. She reached out first, and we ended up catching up, and it's here that we decided to give us another try. We had both grown a lot as people, and our relationship was a lot different than when we were teenagers, but we still had a similar spark, so we just went for it. We've been dating for 3 years, and about 2 months ago, I decided to propose to her, and she said yes. I was over the moon about this, obviously, and the two of us immediately jumped into wedding planning mode. However, for about the last 2 or so weeks, I noticed that she had been really reserved and quiet. She was acting a bit apprehensive about anything wedding or marriage related. Then last night she sat me down and said, I need to tell you something that's been eating me inside for a long time. And it's here that she confessed that during college, she had a year-long friends with benefits situation with my older brother. It was when she was about 19 years old and my brother was 22. So about a year after we had broken up. My brother had graduated and started his first job in the same city that she was studying in. And since he didn't really know anyone else there, they began to hang out. Apparently, they had gotten really close and eventually started sleeping together. They kept it up for about the entire school year until she went back home for the summer, and by the time she had come back, my brother started working somewhere else. She then told me that it meant nothing, and that they were both just really lonely and isolated, and she was still not in the best headspace due to our breakup. She said there was no romance involved and that nothing's happened since then, especially after we started dating. Now, I should note that I'm pretty close with my brother, which made it hurt even more, because guess what? He never mentioned any of this to me, and I remember specifically asking about my ex-girlfriend, since I knew he was working in the same city that she was going to school, but he just told me that they never ran into each other. After we reconnected and started dating again, she has spent a lot of time with my family, including my older brother, which makes me feel so many things about all of this, knowing they've interacted so many times, and things seem so normal despite what they were hiding. My brother was even so excited for us when we announced our engagement, and I just feel so betrayed knowing that they were keeping this from me for so long. She said that she couldn't go into our marriage keeping this secret, and that she really needed to get this off of her chest. She then reiterated that nothing's happened since that summer and even offered to let me go through her phone to check for myself. And honestly, I don't even know what to think at this point. My brother is married and has been for the last 2 years, so I somewhat believe her when she says nothing more happened. But at the same time, if she could keep this from me for so long, I simply don't know what else she could be lying about. I went really quiet after she told me all of this, and she asked me repeatedly what I was thinking and if I was gonna say anything. And you know what? I just told her, man, I don't think we should be getting married right now. I didn't break up with her outright, but I just can't pretend to be okay with going through with marrying her while all of this is still on my mind. Well, when I said this, she did not take this well, and she's been very upset ever since I mentioned ending the engagement, and keeps mentioning how it was so long ago and that it meant nothing. Well, we haven't really spoken since, and things are really getting tense right now. I even caught her crying in the bathroom this morning. I haven't spoken to my brother about about this yet, but I'm planning to do so. He isn't innocent in this either, and it hurts just as much knowing my own blood did something like this behind my back and then kept it from me for so long. I understand that it was a long time ago and that we were broken up at the time, but the fact that she hid it for so long and played everything like it was normal, and the fact that it was my brother of all people, someone that's going to be in our lives permanently, like, I don't know. I simply don't know how to navigate all this, and I don't know if this is even salvageable. I definitely don't think I'm ready to marry her right now, and at this point I just don't know what to do. Yeah, I don't know about anyone else, but this would be a deal breaker. Like, if I saw a family member's ex-girlfriend in the wild, quite literally the last thing on my mind would be like, oh man, let's sleep together. Let's hang out and have a thing. Like, no, dude, I'm not gonna do that. The older brother's a scumbag for doing that, in my opinion, and that really is just my take. And your fiancé is a complete moron for not mentioning this sooner. Like, holy crap, this didn't come up once? You didn't think that maybe in the past 3 years you should have said something about this? Like, come on. So yeah, I don't blame you for delaying your engagement. This sounds like a nightmare and I would never want to deal with this. Am I the jerk for refusing to keep driving a guy to and from work? As this guy is supposed to be paying me every week for like gas money, but he literally hasn't done that yet and it's been almost a month. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of wondering if I made a mistake by like canceling all of this, and I'm honestly just not sure if I'm in the wrong and I don't know what to do. Okay, so I've been driving this guy to and from work, which is like an hour away from the town that we both live in. We agreed that I would drive him to and from work regularly in exchange for like $50 a week for gas money. Well, it's reaching the end of about 3 weeks, and the most I've gotten is half a tank of gas, which is like maybe $25. The weird thing is that he kept buying me food all the time that I never really asked for, but he also always makes trying to get gas money from him like pulling teeth. Well, tonight I confronted him as he was getting out of my car. I said to him, hey, I want that $50 of gas money tomorrow. And for reference, I had reminded him earlier this week already, and I know his cousin has been on his butt about it, so it's not like he had no heads up at all. Well, he then turns to me with this shocked look on his face and says, wow, why so aggressive? But I responded back by saying, I'm not being aggressive. I'm just saying that I want that gas money tomorrow. He then says to me, what, do you think I'm not going to pay it or something? And to that I answered, well, it's been 3 weeks. And he says back, well, I put gas in your car, have I not? And I said, you gave me half a tank one time. And after that, the conversation was over and I drove off feeling pissed off and very disrespected. I then just ended up texting him by saying, hey, forget the money. The deal's off. Find someone else to take you to work tomorrow, because I actually have an ounce of self-respect and I can't let myself keep doing a favor for someone who's really gonna act smart with me like that. He then responded by saying, well, what is that you have against me? I've been nothing but nice to you. And honestly, I feel used and disrespected. He would keep trying to love bomb his way out of paying gas money by buying me food, as I mentioned before, and the other day he threw my trash away for me. And sure, this case is probably cut and dry, but I am very easily manipulated and gaslit, so it's very hard for me to stand up for myself. It's way easier to let myself think that I'm always the one in the wrong, and that's something that I really want to work on for the sake of my own mental health. So with that in mind, like, did I make a mistake here? Am I really the jerk for refusing to give this guy a ride? Because at this point, I just don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you did anything wrong, and I think you're completely justified in saying, hey, get another ride. Because, dude, it's been almost a month and you really haven't paid for gas once. I didn't ask for you to clean my car. I didn't ask for food. I need money for gas, dude. Everything else is fine. Like, that's the one thing I need from you. So please just give me the gas money and everything's gonna be okay. It's also a really telling sign when he's like, oh, wow, you're being so aggressive. And it's like, no, you're not. You are not being aggressive. You asking for what you're owed is not you suddenly being a bad person. Because when this guy's like, oh, do you think I'm not gonna pay you? Like, yeah, at that point, based on the way he's acting, I really do feel like you're not gonna pay me. In fact, it's been 3 weeks and you haven't paid me fully. Like, what do you mean? I have every right to be more demanding in this situation. Like, you're taking advantage of me. So yeah, I don't blame you for canceling on him and calling all of this off, because this guy sounds like a massive jerk and I just don't think you should be on the hook for something you can't afford. My girlfriend plans on sleeping over with a bunch of guys while drunk, putting me in a situation where I'm wondering if I'm overreacting, because that sounds incredibly sketchy and I just don't know how to articulate that. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been dating my girlfriend for about 10 months and we truly love each other a lot. One small hitch that we do have here is that our relationship has been mostly long distance. She goes to college 1,000 miles away from me, so flying down is the only option to see her. However, this summer she's been home and we've been hanging out almost every single single day of the week. Well, today was the last day before she goes on a trip to the shore with all of her girlfriends, and then immediately after has to fly out to move into her new apartment at college. She's leaving for 3 days each, so like 6 days in total. I have known this for quite a while, and I work full-time at an internship, so I didn't plan on helping her move in. We decided to spend one last day together before she doesn't really see me for a week. Now, one thing to note about my girlfriend is that she likes to go out and party with her friends while at college. So today we were having a long chat with each other, and we were losing track of time really quick. I then realized I needed to leave for home in like 15 minutes, so I decided to ask her one final time about her trip. I asked her, okay, what are you going to be doing with all the free time that you'll have while moving in for 3 days? She then said to me, well, I'll be sleeping over with my friends. Now, usually my girlfriend will always tell me when she's going out, but this was the first time I was hearing about this, and coincidentally, it was 15 minutes before I don't see her for a week. I then asked her which friends, and she said, well, it's actually a sleepover at Joe's apartment, and Joe's not his real name. I then said, oh, actually? I mean, you're not going to be the only girl there, are you? She then said, oh no, my friend Sarah's going to be there too. I then said to her, just Sarah? I mean, how many guys are going to be there? She then responded, well, less than 20, I would say. And okay, at this point, my mind was blown. Why am I hearing about this now? To her credit, I will say she is friends with about 5 of the guys, and I've talked to them before, and they are very nice people for like the short time that I saw them. But less than 20 in my mind implies like 19 people. Also, I'd like to mention that after this conversation, I found out she wanted to get drunk without her dad around, who by the way is helping her move in. So the bottom line is that I'm stuck in a very unfavorable position to potentially be the person to ruin her fun on her time away at school moving in. And I personally feel extremely uncomfortable for her to be sleeping over with a bunch of dudes that I'm not super close with. Her arguments are that she has Sarah and that she's gone out drinking with some of these guys before. She even offered to ask Joe to get like a separate room for her and Sarah to share so they can be separated. Another thing I'll note is that one of the guys there has hit on her multiple times before, but she turned him down immediately each time. My girlfriend said that she will ask Joe to separate him from her, but I still find it weird that she's finding it okay to put herself around these people. Now, hear me out. I fully trust my girlfriend, but it's the dudes that I do not know who I cannot trust one bit that kind of freak me out, especially that one guy who keeps hitting on her. A hangout and a party is one thing, but a sleepover is just too much to ask, I think. So seriously, am I overreacting in this situation? Like, what should I even do here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna be the guy to say it, but I don't think your girlfriend's being loyal, dude. What the heck is going on? Is she sleeping over at like a frat house? Like, what's happening right now? Like, at the bare minimum, she should at least know that this looks really bad, because holy crap, this just doesn't look good at all. So if she does know that it looks bad and just doesn't care, then that, in my opinion, is like the biggest red flag on the planet. So her saying like, oh yeah, I've got Sarah there, nothing's gonna happen, it's gonna be fine, that is so stupid in my opinion, and it just doesn't make sense. Because what's Sarah gonna do? Like, she easily could walk off and go like hang out with her boyfriend, and then suddenly your girlfriend's by herself with like 18 other guys, and it's like, oops, what happened? I don't know. Everybody's sleeping over, and it's like the perfect storm for that one guy to like step in and try to make a move or something. Like, no thank you. That is like incredibly sketchy. So yeah, dude, I would also be very suspicious. This seems really weird. And the fact that she's okay with this and doesn't think it's that big of a deal, that in my opinion is a big red flag that I simply would not ignore. My sister's new mother-in-law conspired against me at my sister's wedding by banishing me to the back of the room during our dinner. And so, after realizing I was being very severely disrespected, I decided to leave early as I didn't want to cause a scene, which gave my sister's new mother-in-law the perfect reason to hate me in public. And now I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place because I seriously just don't know what to do anymore. Here's what happened. Okay, I really need the internet to settle this because my entire family is split right down the middle over what happened at my sister's wedding last month. For a bit of context, my sister, well, let's call her Jen for the sake of the story, has been with her husband, who I will call Tyler, for like 6 years. It's also important to note that I introduced them to each other. Like, I literally was the reason they met at a party. So you would think that I would have some kind of special place in this wedding, right? Well, no, completely wrong. Jen calls me 3 weeks before the wedding and says, hey, we're doing assigned seating, and I want you to know that you're at table 9. I said, okay, cool. I mean, where's table 9? She then says to me, oh, it's near the back. And I said, near the back? Like, how near the back? She then sent me the seating chart, and literally, I was behind the photographer's table. I wasn't a bridesmaid. I wasn't at the family table. Like, I wasn't even in the middle somewhere. I was seated behind the people who were getting paid to be there. So I called her and I asked her, okay, what's going on? And she said that Tyler has a big family and they needed the front tables, and I just said, Jen, I introduced you to. But she said to me, oh, I know, it's just really complicated. Well, it turns out that Tyler's mom, let's call her Linda for the sake of the story, apparently had a problem with me from years ago, where I once told Tyler at a barbecue that he needed to step up when Jen was going through a really hard time. And apparently Linda overheard that and never forgot it. So Linda basically got me banished to table 9 behind the camera crew. Well, I showed up to the wedding and I sat at my table. I smiled, I took my photos, and I left right after dinner. I didn't go to the reception and I didn't make a scene. I just quietly left. Well, Jen hasn't spoken to me in like 3 weeks, and she says I humiliated her by leaving early and that everybody noticed and asked where I was. My mom thinks that I should apologize, and my dad thinks that Jen owes me an apology, whereas my friends say that I should have just sucked it up for one night. But here's the thing, I introduced these people. I sat behind the freaking photographers, and I still showed up and I kept my mouth shut all night. And leaving quietly after dinner is somehow the thing that caused a problem. So am I the jerk for leaving a wedding early after being seated behind the camera crew of the wedding? Because I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, at first, I kind of sided with your friends until I thought about it, but dude, you did the right thing here. The fact that anybody's getting upset about you leaving, in my opinion, is like so performative, it's not even funny. This is Linda really wanting to get back at you in some way. She not only wanted to make you feel awful, but she wanted to have a reason to hate you. So she set up the perfect circumstance for you to react in any kind of way, for her to then justify her anger towards you, which in this case is her banishing you to table 9 and then being like, oh wow, she left early. See, I knew she was a bad person. Like, what are you talking about? That is so obnoxious. And I hate people who act like this. It's like, dude, if you don't like me, just say it. Stop trying to find a reason to justify to make it public. Just say you don't like me and we can move on with our lives. Because in my opinion, that's exactly what happened. Linda needed a reason to hate you publicly, and now she does. And so she's gonna make the biggest deal on planet Earth that you left early and use this as the crux of any argument about why you're a bad person. When in reality, Jen, Tyler, and Linda are terrible people. Especially Jen, by the way. Like, Jen and Tyler became flying monkeys for Linda over something so stupid. And flying monkeys, if you're not familiar, is a term when you're dealing with like a narcissist, where a narcissist will send other people to attack you on their behalf. And Jen and Tyler basically became exactly that, even though you played a part in them getting married. Like, that's some obnoxious crap that I just absolutely cannot stand. So no, dude, if I was in your shoes, I would be holding my ground and be like, no, I didn't do anything wrong. These people are out of their mind and they're stupid. Plus, I would never forgive Linda for this. Like, I would absolutely blame Linda and anybody else involved for this entire thing happening. Because at the end of the day, you're family. There's no reason you should be sitting in the back of the freaking wedding. And anybody trying to justify that is wrong and incredibly stupid. My entitled manager is stealing all the tips from all the servers at the restaurant I work at. But after hearing everybody complain about not getting their tips on time, as well as their paychecks not reflecting that pay difference, I decided to do some investigating and take things into my own hands. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that I've worked in restaurants for my entire adult life, and I've seen just about every single tipping arrangement you could even imagine. From tip jars split between employees by shift, to serving tables with tip outs for bussers, bartenders, and other people involved, or even digital tips spread throughout checks exactly by the hours that you worked. If you can think of it, I've probably experienced it. In December, I became a manager at a chain corporation that does low amounts of business at this particular location. Right now, it's just me, the franchise owner who just bought the location in November, and about 8 other part-time employees, and it's mostly younger high school first job type of people. It's a very small staff. According to the younger staff, they used to see on their paychecks their hourly wage and hours worked, as well as a separate section for credit card tips. Well, ever since the new owner took over, those credit card tips have not appeared on their checks, only their hourly wage. Since starting my position, for the most part, I have completely taken over the back of house and kitchen operations. Although, instead of actually logging an order or an inventory account into a computer myself, he simply has me record the order on paper, and he inputs the order himself. I have no access to any of the manager functions on our back-of-house systems besides being able to print labels for food items. In terms of cash handling, I tend to work in the morning, so I have only been responsible for making sure the drawer is counted and balanced at the start of the shift, but either he or another employee has always handled the checkouts. He instructs employees to simply get the drawer balanced to about $200, and then any and everything more than that is the deposit to be put in the cash out report and cash in the safe. And trust me, this detail is going to be very important later on. Now, meanwhile, for weeks now, I have had several conversations with employees about tips, and they're wondering where they go. And frankly, most of them seem confused and slightly upset about it, but haven't said anything to him or felt like they could do anything about it. However, our minimum wage just raised to $15, so they all just got a raise by default, so I think they're just distracted and happy about that. Despite that raise, these employees have not been receiving any of the credit card tips that customers leave for months. And mind you, this is a fairly well-known and nationwide chain. I have been conflicted about what to do about this, and I've started to blatantly tell some customers, and they've even told others. But when speaking to the owner, I'm focused on making a good impression on my boss, so I don't bring it up. But instead, I just have a long conversation about the needs and the status of the kitchen. I've been struggling for a while, and the job has been a blessing. Even for the bad pay and stolen tips, I can't afford to lose it. But I also want to do the right thing and make sure these employees get their tips. But tonight, I decided to take things into my own hands though. He tasked me with coming in to close the store for him 3 nights this week, which means I was responsible for the checkouts. When I counted the drawer and separated the deposit, I entered the deposit amount and printed out the checkout report. On the report, it shows the following categories: declared cash, expected cash, tips, deposit, and cash over and short. And then underneath is a full list of each individual credit card tips for that day. So clearly, on these reports, they account for and separate the credit card tips out for the employees. Yet none of them see any of that and are blindly adding the tips to the cash deposit because the owner has instructed them that anything and everything over balancing the drawer goes into the deposit. So instead of doing that, I separated the tips amount from the deposit, checked the labor report to see the exact hourage of each employee that worked today, and divided the cash tips up between each employee based on their hours worked for that day. Their tips are sitting in name baggies in the office that I will give to them when they come in. It is their money after all. Now, I don't know how this trend will continue or what will happen when the owner returns on Thursday, but I am hoping he will be empathetic. I have taken this job extremely serious and operated with complete integrity for his business and will always continue to do so, but if that costs me my job in the end, I don't know exactly how to proceed. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster actually has an update. Here's exactly what they had to say. So fast forward to the next day, and I spoke with my family and friends for a long time today, getting their opinions on everything. And I even spoke anonymously with the Department of Labor about what to do, while giving little details besides the state I work in, just so I could decide my actions carefully. Unfortunately, according to the Department of Labor, if I file an official complaint, it will take 3 to 4 weeks to process to the higher-ups, and they will make a decision on its validity first, and then if it's valid, basically choose whether they have the resources to pursue this and send someone out to our location. Or if they decide they don't have the resources, they will simply advise me to seek a private attorney to represent me in a case against the business. Now, sadly, I can't afford a private attorney to take this anywhere, and I suspect the reason their resources are divided so thin is because the minimum wage was raised to $15 an hour this month. And cases such as these are popping up all over the place as business owners shrewdly adapt. But hopefully this all goes well, because trust me, I am feeling very anxious. Yeah, that's an awful thing for that owner to do, because seriously, the way they're acting is completely out of line. Like, they're literally lying to their employees and taking all the tips. So the fact that you went in there and tried to make things right, in my opinion, is a great thing. And hopefully you could be the cause of some kind of change in this restaurant, because stealing tips from your employees is such a low thing to do. And honestly, this needs to change sooner than later. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my in-laws that if they want a grandchild, then they should give my wife her inheritance now, just so we could afford to have a child in our lives? Here's what happened. So basically, the title says it all. My in-laws want their only child to start pumping out grandchildren. Now, my wife is 28 years old and just finished her PhD, so she wants to get established in her career before we start having a family. My in-laws know how much money I make, and they know that we could live comfortably off of my earnings. But that isn't what my wife wants. She has worked her butt off to get where she is, and she wants to reap the rewards of her hard work. She also says that once she is working, then I can cut back on my hours as a welder, and I can actually relax. I have been working since I was 15 years old, so literally half my life. I make a very good living in return for a lot of fairly hard work, and I have supported my wife with her education. She will graduate without any student loans. We have a house and she has a good car. I mean, we have a good life, and we want a few more years alone before we start our family. But unfortunately, over Christmas, the in-laws just wouldn't drop it. But eventually, I finally snapped. I said that if they wanted grandchildren, then they could reimburse us for her education. They could further pay for her salary that she would give up, and when she returned to work, they could pay her the difference between what she could have earned and her entry-level position. They could also pay for a nanny so my wife could work, or they could just back off and wait for us to be ready. Well, they said that they couldn't afford all of that, but I asked them how they expected us to afford it. I said that if it really was what they wanted, they could just give her the inheritance that would be coming her way now instead of later. Well, when I said that, they got all offended and said that it is not hers until they don't need it anymore. My wife asked me to drop it, and she has tried dozens of times to explain to her parents as to why we are deciding to wait, but they just ignore her. They ignore what we want for our lives. Well, ever since Christmas, they have been very cold to us. They seem to think that I was a rude jerk for pointing out the cost of what they were asking for. A lot of her family agree with them that I went too far in asking them to pay if they wanted a grandchild. And honestly, I kinda need to know, am I the jerk in this scenario? Because at this point, I am seriously unsure of what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think the in-laws in this situation were really out of line. They were acting obnoxious about your wife getting pregnant, and this is in a way that was a lot more intrusive than I would personally feel comfortable with. Like, I can understand like the occasional comment of like, hey, when are we gonna have grandkids or something like that, but it sounds like this was way more intense than it should have been. And that's just not fair for you or your wife. Also, the life plan that you guys have makes a lot of sense in my opinion. She literally just got her PhD and she wants to get a job before she has kids. Like, if I went through all that hard work and then all of a sudden had a kid out of nowhere that prevented me from getting a job in that field, I would be pretty disappointed that I don't have time to work on my craft. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for basically putting them in their place, because you shined a very bright light on the way they're acting towards you guys. And hopefully, as a result, their attitude eases up in the future. I got fired twice in a row with very little to no explanation. And after racking my head and trying to figure out if I did something wrong, I am left seriously confused, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've worked in the restaurant industry as a server for several years. I've had few to no problems and was valued by my employers. Recently, I moved to New York City, where I trained with one restaurant for 2 weeks and opened with them. But then, 2 days later after opening, they fired me. It was super out of left field, and I was not expecting it at all. Throughout the training, I mastered the menu, and most days they praised me. They said it was both due to not needing people and my performance. I asked them if they could provide any insight as to where I fell short so I could implement changes in my next position, but they were never really able to provide me with any of this information. I got a new position, worked there for a few weeks, and an incident happened where some entitled woman wanted to stay past their time at the table, and this is when we had a reservation coming in. But when I politely asked them if they could move to the bar, they talked to the owner and I was fired again. So the same thing happened. They called and they fired me, and I asked why, and they said the exact same thing, and when I asked if there was anywhere that I fell short, they alluded that there were some things, but again, they didn't give me any specifics. I even asked them several times, just wanting to know where I needed to improve to prevent this from happening again. So at this point, I'm really just trying to figure out if there is something that I am not thinking of that is causing this to happen. Finding jobs here is a nightmare, plus the training periods where you're hardly even getting paid. I'm confident that it is not revolving around my personality. I'm very kind and I'm accommodating, and I got along great with all of my coworkers. I never missed any shifts, and I was always on time. Plus, I'm 100% sober, so that is definitely not an issue. I also never butt heads with anyone and very rarely messed up any orders. Of course, in being new to any restaurant, there were some growing pains, but nothing out of the ordinary. The only thing I can think of is maybe that they were looking at the sales or something like that. Not that I think mine were low, I just can't fathom any other reason. Also, why would there be something that they all refuse to tell me? It is honestly so strange, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So this really does sound like an awful situation, and I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. It doesn't sound like you did anything wrong with like work performance or anything like that, but I think it really was just like a matter of like the stars aligning against you. Like for the first place, I'm willing to assume they just hired too many people, and you're just one of the people that got the short end of the stick. And sure, that definitely sucks sometimes, but unfortunately, that is just something that happens. As for the second place, I think you really should have brought that to a manager, even though in my opinion, I don't think you did anything wrong. So I think regardless, I wouldn't let this shake you up too much, because I really think these are just freak accidents and that they're not connected in any kind of way. Because if you really are doing all the positive things that you're mentioning, then eventually you'll find a job that will treat you right, which will hopefully make all of these experiences worth it in the end. My boyfriend of 4 years has ghosted me after I was in a car accident, and after 5 days of dealing with him not contacting me, I'm now wondering if I should contact him first, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My boyfriend and I of 4 years got into a bit of a silly argument the other day and went to bed not talking. We currently don't live together, and the next morning I woke up to a long apology text message from him. I texted him back accepting his apology and apologizing as well. Minutes later, I was involved in a car accident as a passenger in a vehicle. I was lucky enough to be able to walk away from the scene, but it was a very, very close call. It was extremely traumatic for me, and I went to the hospital shortly after with my mom. I called my boyfriend before arriving at the hospital to let him know what was happening. He couldn't believe what I was telling him and expressed how grateful he was that I was still alive. Hours later, as I'm arriving back home from the hospital, he called me to check in. I missed his first call but answered on the second one 2 minutes later. We were on the phone together for less than 3 minutes. As I was explaining the situation to him, I was stuttering. I was trying to get out something that the guy at the hospital said, referring to the doctor or the nurse that saw me at the hospital, but my boyfriend swears he heard me say the hot guy at the hospital. He then wouldn't listen to me, and he began talking over me, saying things like, "What hot guy at the hospital? You messed up and you're tripping over your words. You might not have meant to, but you definitely said hot guy at the hospital." At that point, I got fed up that I couldn't even get a word in, and I loudly said as he was speaking over me, "I'm going to hang up now." And then I did exactly that. Seconds afterwards, he sent me a text message saying the following: "How are you gonna say the hot guy at the hospital and then hang up on me? Whatever, feel better soon." Now, I'm not gonna quote the entire exchange, but it continued with me calling him a jerk for treating me like this after the day I had just had. I told him that I was mentally and physically in so much pain, and that there was no hot guy at the hospital, and I didn't even say that. He said I was gaslighting him, and that lately I've been acting awful and rude towards him. He said for me to have a good day and to feel better, and that he's not dealing with any of this garbage. Well, it's been about 5 days now, and we still have not talked. He hasn't checked on me at all, and I'm pretty confident he hasn't asked any of my family or friends how I'm doing either. Now, to be very clear, there was no hot guy at the hospital. I honestly just fumbled my words. So do I contact him first, or do I continue to wait for him to contact me? What should I do? Your boyfriend sounds awful. First of all, he's really not being sympathetic of you getting out of the hospital, and he's also basically ignoring the fact that you were in a really bad accident. And instead, he's focusing on something you didn't even say. Like, you very clearly stumbled your words, and it's honestly not that big of a deal. So for him to hyper-focus on this one thing that you didn't even say, and that you very clearly articulated, "No, that's not what I meant," in my opinion, is a giant red flag, and seriously is so uncalled for. It's also ironic how he's like, "Oh man, you're gaslighting me," when in reality, he's the one doing that to you. He's making you think like you actually said something that you didn't. Also, he could try to catch you in some kind of lie. But there is no lie, you're just trying to tell him exactly what's going on. His action also kind of makes me believe that he was almost looking for a reason to be mad at you. Like maybe he was trying to find some kind of excuse to blame you for the relationship or something like that. I mean, I don't know. If I was with someone for 4 years and they said something by accident, I would hopefully know that person long enough to be like, oh, okay, they didn't mean it like that. Because seriously, this guy sounds like a narcissist and he sounds incredibly toxic. And in my opinion, you do not deserve to be treated like that in the slightest. My entitled neighbors demand that I give them access to the lake behind my house, as they claim it's their right to get to the lake whenever they want, regardless of if I own the property or not. And I'm honestly so annoyed by all of these people coming to my door that I'm now at a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, last year I purchased a property from the estate of a couple who owned it for about 50 plus years. As they got older, they spent less and less time there, and by the time they passed away, they hadn't lived on the site for almost a decade. The property property is heavily wooded with lake access from the back of the lot, and it was in need of some serious tender loving care. Because of the woods and the distance between the lots, I didn't expect to see much of my neighbors, but at first I had people stopping by all the time telling me how great it was that I was cleaning up and renovating the property, which I thought was awesome. I work from home, so it was nice to see people living reasonably around me. So this was all fine and good until the last steps, pouring a concrete pad for my van and finishing up the fencing. I hadn't moved in yet, but once the extra driveway and pad were added, I parked my van. When I returned for the final move-in, there was a massive gouge down the length of it, as if someone had squeezed another vehicle by or dragged something else large by it. But anyways, I've moved myself and my dog in, and because of the dog and the incident with the scratch van, I decided to close the gates. Now, by doing so, I cut off access to the lake through my property, and it appears the neighbors have been using my entryway and side yard to get down to the water for a while, and this is because the old owners were never here to care about it. I started getting notes and knocks on the door about the problem I had suddenly caused. Now, I don't mind the occasional neighbor kid knocking on the door to cut through, but this was absolutely non-stop. I'm not kidding, like 3 to 4 groups a day, and they were not always terribly polite about it. I was even asked to move my van and vehicle so people could back up boats down the drive, and I'm now assuming that's how my van got gouged. Now, I start by explaining I have a dog and the normal reasons for having a fence, but instead I have been met with some pretty intense criticism that I'm changing how things have always worked around here. The last straw for me was people opening the gate on their own and then getting upset that my dog was loose in the yard. I finally acted by putting up a no trespassing sign, a sign indicating that the dog was in the yard, as well as locks and an intercom by my doorbell, so when people ring I can tell them that I'm working and not have to come down to the door 5 times a day. Even though the summer season has come and gone, I'm still getting a steady barrage of notes and voicemail messages telling me that access to the lake is grandfathered in as the previous owners allowed it, and it's been going on forever. These letters and voicemails are coming from 2 houses specifically, a woman in her 50s and a couple about the same age. They claim they represent the rest of the neighborhood, as well as the homeowner association, which, by the way, when I purchased my property, there wasn't a single thing about neighborhood covenants or an actual organized homeowners association. Sometimes the letters and the voicemails take on a more formal approach. Other times they're just informing me of how bad of a person I am for ruining the neighborhood. My attorney assures me this claimed easement is absolutely not a thing, but these are people I'll presumably be living nearby for a long time, and I would prefer to be at least on neutral terms. So is there a way for me to deal with this that I might be missing? Because at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Honestly, your neighbors sound awful. Like, they seriously assume just because they've been trespassing on the old owner's property for how long now? What, 10 years? They can now have that supposed right given back to them with a new owner? Like, what is going on here? There is literally a new owner of the property, and if the original poster says no, you can't go through my yard to get to the lake, then that's that. Find another way to get down there. If it really was grandfathered in that they should have access, then that probably should have been explained when you bought the property. Like, they would have straight up told you, hey, you can get this house, but people have a legal right to drive through your yard and go down to the lake by your house. Now, I don't know about you, but if I knew that before buying this property, there's no way I would buy it in the first place. I wouldn't want people driving through my yard, especially if I had a dog like the original poster. And you know what? The way these people have been acting as a collective is so inappropriate. They've been rude and aggressive. They've been ganging up on you just because you're the new person in the neighborhood, and they're acting like they can push you around based on their own trespassing from before you got there. So honestly, I really hope this all gets worked out, because these people that you live by sound incredibly entitled, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would not want to deal with that in the slightest. An entitled Karen makes my life a living nightmare when I was the IT manager of a company I used to work for. So I decided to get revenge years later by hacking into her email and essentially sabotaging her job, resulting in her getting fired. And I've honestly never felt better about getting revenge in my life. Here's what happened. So I was the IT manager at a small television network. I worked there for about 5 years until I became disabled for totally unrelated reasons. I worked at the corporate office and it was a pretty good job, and I liked it, of course, but there were a bunch of jerks there. Let's just say that me and the local station manager didn't get along. She would blame all of her problems and why she hadn't got her work done on the computers. If she hadn't done something that her boss told her by email, she would blame me because she didn't get the email. When I upset her because I wouldn't let her do something, like when I banned eBay network-wide, she would have her kid load down the receptionist's computer with all kinds of spam, malware, and viruses. I had complained about it to the upper management, but she still argued that it was really my fault. Me and my employees could fix every computer at 23 stations, but we could never fix that receptionist computer. After I had to quit for health reasons, I never messed with the company because it was a great job. That is, until a couple of years ago. One day, I was at the grocery store in the produce section, and I had seen some heads of lettuce. And then I thought about the word lettuce, and I remembered that's the station manager's password. Now, I don't know why I remembered that, but you know what? It was time for some fun. After I got home from the store, I took my time, made something to eat, I got a beer, and I comfortably sat down at my computer. We always used our initials in our emails at the company, so it wasn't hard to remember her email because her initials were, of all things, FMB. So I went to the web interface for their email server, I typed in FMB and lettuce, and I logged in. She had not changed her password in over 2 years, and it was such an easy password to remember. I don't know why I hadn't thought about it before. Maybe I just wanted to forget about her, but that's honestly too bad for her. So I thought to myself, now what? And honestly, I had to think about this for a while. Should I hack into her files on the network servers? No, that's a lot of work. So instead, I looked through her emails. There were some that looked like important documents, some conversations with other employees, and some of them were spam. I thought I would delete all of her emails, but I decided against it. It could look like there was a problem with her email account, and then they might just delete it and create it again, resulting in her probably picking out a new password. So I just deleted one email that looked really important, and then I logged out. So I sat back and I thought about it, and it took me over 2 weeks to figure out what I wanted to do. And trust me, it was a very enjoyable 2 weeks, I might add. Now, I am very patient when it comes to messing with other people. I got that from my seriously ornery father. So I can just delete an important email here and there, but not all of them. Just do it once in a while to start arguments over her email. I can take my time and enjoy this. So this will be something fun to do every so often. So every other week on a random weekday, I logged in and deleted an important looking email. Sometimes I would even delete 2 of them. This was to establish a consistent pattern of her blaming IT for her garbage, which I am sure didn't stop when I quit. I just wanted to make a more regular pattern, and I did that for about 5 months. After that, I stepped it up. I started doing it every week, especially every other Thursday night, just so it would look like she was lazy on Fridays. Although not every Thursday, the weeks in between were a random day, so it wasn't so obvious, and I did that for about 3 more months. Well, 1 week after enjoying messing with her for the better part of the year, I said screw it, and I deleted an important looking email every single day that week. Well, the following Monday I couldn't log in, and the email address wasn't there any longer. So I thought to myself, why did her email just get deleted? Well, my suspicions were confirmed when I talked to a friend of mine that still worked for the station manager. She got fired for blaming not getting her work done on IT, and my friend volunteered that information because she knew that I would love to hear it, even though I didn't tell my friend that I'm the reason she got fired. But as a bonus, my friend, the assistant station manager, got promoted to the station manager position. So it was great that she got fired, but still, I kinda miss messing with her every single week. Wow, that is an awesome form of petty revenge, because seriously, this came along 2 years later? You seriously sat around and said, okay, we're gonna do this, and you plotted out exactly how you were gonna do this with this slow burn technique. That is hilarious to me, and I love everything about that. But it's also really funny to see that all these years later, she's still blaming IT for all of her problems. Everything that she can't do, she's always looking to IT and being like, wait, no, it's their fault. But in reality, it's her own fault. She literally just can't do her job. So honestly, good for you for getting back at her for treating you so poorly when you work there. Her behavior and attitude is completely unacceptable, and I think it's really funny that you took her down in such a roundabout way. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I kicked out my best friend from my house after she treated me like garbage by invading my personal space, going through my personal banking account, and mistreating my dog. And now I feel awful because I've lost a really good friend, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So as the title says, last week I kicked what I thought was a good friend out of my house because I can no longer take her antics. And honestly, I just wanted to get this out of my system. My friend Kendall and I met in university in 2016. Kendall is not her real name. We studied different majors, but we were from the same department, so we share many classes together and bonded over our passion for gaming and memes. Upon graduation, Kendall moved back to her hometown due to COVID and found a job there, and we kept in touch online through Instagram. About 3 years later, Kendall told me she found a better paying job in the city, so she's planning to move out of her parents' place. When I asked her about her plans on her accommodations, she replied by saying, "Well, that's the thing. I was going to ask if you have an extra bedroom that I could move into." For context, I've inherited an apartment from my late grandfather, which is a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath near the city center last January, and I currently live there since it is closer to my workplace and it has all the convenience of public transport. After some thinking, I thought that there's no harm in living with Kendall since I considered us as close as friends. We discussed the terms of the rent, and a week later, Kendall moved into my apartment. And you know what? It was great at first. My home felt more lively than usual, and the thought of going home to a close friend warmed my heart, and it gave me a sense of security. Things were okay for a while, but then everything goes downhill super quickly. Kendall started complaining about many things at home, about her work, her savings, and how she feels homesick. At first, I was very accommodating, thinking maybe she just needs time to get used to the city life. I offered as much help as I can, even to the point of if she's low on money, that I don't mind voiding a month's rent, if that meant I could help her achieve financial stability. I taught her how I save money, how I would live off of my then low salary, with several commitments like my car, my dog, and a student loan. I grew up where my parents expect me to be independent, so I told her things that I would do when I was low on cash, how to get freelance jobs, as well as several other things. But she always seemed to have excuses for every suggestion that I have. Finding a freelance job is too hard, or how she couldn't let go of her premium junk food, that she isn't willing to cook or meal prep, and I eventually decided to just leave it as it is. After 2 months of living together, I realized Kendall started treating me as some kind of competition. She would constantly ask me things like how much money I would make a month, while also asking how much job hoppings that took. Anything that she thinks she's better than me at, she'll definitely pop that question to try and figure it out. She boasts about how loyal she is to her awful paying company, and how I would never be able to move up the corporate ladder, as she called me an industry frog. She once snooped my savings balance and asked me how in the world I had so much money saved up, especially considering all my commitments. Now, mind you, she didn't have a lot of commitments since her parents paid off her student loans and fully paid off her brand new car for her. She then said that maybe I should stop collecting rent from her, and that's when I got mad. I told her if she isn't happy living with me, then maybe she should just move out. And when I said that, that's when the crocodile tears started to shed. She said that it was a joke and I didn't have to take her so seriously. She then begged for forgiveness and promised to never snoop on my personal items and details ever again. Well, I let it go once, but she kept bringing things up. She would say stuff like, "Well, you have the cash and a credit card." And she would say this every time I told her I'd rather stay home because I no longer have a budget to go out and have fun. Comments like these became more frequent when I got a new job 6 months ago. On top of that, she doesn't clean up after herself. She tried to flirt with my boyfriend and at times parked in my parking space when our initial agreement was that she would find her own parking space if she moves in with her own car, all because my apartment has only one parking lot per unit. The straw that broke the camel's back, though, was when I caught her kicking my dog in his abdomen when I got home from work. I yelled at her and I rushed to check my dog. Luckily, he was fine, but I rushed him to the vet for safety measures. I got home and she sneered that it was just a dog, and as a friend, I shouldn't treat her like that. I asked her why she kicked my dog, but she just didn't even answer me. She shrugged her shoulders and tried to escape into her room. Now, at this point, it was already about a year since Kendall moved in with me, but I finally lost my cool and I told her off, bringing up her problems and how I tried to be nice and accommodating. Then I told her I'm giving her a week to move out, and that from then on, I would rather we keep our relationship casual or we don't ever talk at all. Kendall cried and begged me not to kick her out, but soon it turned into her screaming back at me, calling me a bad friend because apparently in her words, I didn't tell her off on how badly she was behaving. There was a lot of back and forth, which I don't remember what I said, but I remember eventually calling her an entitled brat. She cried again, saying it was uncalled for, and then she stormed off to her room. The next day, I was bombarded with text messages from other university friends, some of them calling me selfish and others sympathizing with my situation. Apparently, Kendall posted our argument on Facebook and Instagram, painting me to be the bad guy. I was upset at first, but I decided that after Kendall moved out, we would no longer be friends, as well as those who took her side of the story and condemned me. Well, last week, Kendall left, and I have changed the locks on my apartment. I curled up in bed and cried myself out, probably from the sadness of losing a friend, or maybe I'm finally letting out all of the frustrations. I am definitely still grieving about the loss of a friend, as I've had many good times with Kendall. For now, I want to focus on myself, and hopefully I will eventually get over this. Yeah, this Kendall person sounds like an awful individual. It doesn't sound like a good friend, and it seems like as soon as they moved in with you, their true colors definitely came out. It's one thing to have a friend and be on good terms with them for the most part, but it really is an entirely different experience to live with them because you learn very quickly if they're a good roommate or not. And honestly, from the looks of it, Kendall is definitely not a good roommate. I really think you did the right thing by kicking her out of the house, and if I'm being completely honest, the fact that she kicked your dog is like more than enough reason to kick her out of the house. Like her weird comments and even snooping through my personal items, I could get past all of that eventually, but the second you hurt my dog is the second the gloves are off. Like at that point, there's no mercy and you've just gotta go. So truly, good for you for putting your foot down and deciding that she has gotta get out of your house, because Kendall did not sound like a good person. And I totally understand that you lost a friend, but I think the peace you're gaining in exchange for this awful person will totally be worth all the trouble of getting her out of the house in the first place. I refuse to invite my stepsister to my wedding as she was such an awful bully growing up as teenagers. But now, as a result, my father is saying that he's not going to be going either unless I involve my stepsister in my wedding. And right now, I'm not sure if I'm the jerk or not. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My father remarried when I was 14 years old. His wife Mary and his stepdaughter Kayla were nightmares in my life. Kayla and Mary are not their real names. My father is wealthy, so we used to go to a fancy school. Kayla was very mean to me, and I had a hard time to the point that I had to move to another school because I simply couldn't take it anymore. One time, she convinced my father and Mary that I was pregnant, and it was so embarrassing because I hadn't done that yet, if you know what I mean. And yet still, she and Mary convinced my father that I should do a pregnancy test. Well, after it came back negative, she told some of her friends at school who are 1 year ahead of me that I got rid of the baby, if you know what I mean. And you know what? This bullying was nonstop. She would do anything to make my life miserable. Once she paid one guy at school to start a rumor that I did nefarious things on a certain guy during class. And when I was already going to another school, she told everybody at my old school that I left because I was caught stealing at the mall and that now I was in a youth detention center. My parents had split custody, so I used to spend 1 week with my father and 1 with my mom. After 2 years of this nightmare, I told my dad that I wouldn't want to stay at his place anymore and that our relationship was reduced to 2 weekends a month. My relationship to my father was non-existent during college days. He would send me money and call me once every month, and that was maybe about it. I went to his house 1 or 2 times during my 5 years in college. I then started dating my fiancé 4 years ago, and I only introduced him to my father after more than 2 years of the relationship. I'm now getting married this spring, and we're going to marry at the beach in another country in Europe. Both of our families are wealthy, and we decided to offer the stay at the hotel for our guests, and that they'll pay for their own tickets. Because of that, we decided to settle on a small number of people to attend, maybe around 80 people, and of course, Kayla is not one of them. The wedding plan started 3 months ago, and my father knew I wasn't going to invite Kayla. However, he flipped out now and said that I need to invite her. But I said I'm not going to invite a person that I don't have a single good memory with to such a big day in my life. And you know what? We've been fighting about it ever since then. This last week, he told me that I shouldn't count on his money if Kayla isn't invited, with my mom basically saying that she'll pay for everything. After that, he said he's not coming to the wedding without Kayla, and I replied by saying fine, stay home then. My grandmother and my aunt are trying to convince me to invite Kayla simply for the sake of our family, but to be completely honest, I'm not even sure if we are a family. So honestly, I need to know, should I invite Kayla, even knowing that this is one of the biggest days of my life, and she still makes me angry to this day? Am I the jerk if I refuse to invite her? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, and honestly, if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would ever invite Kayla to this wedding. She made your childhood and your life a living nightmare. She spread false rumors about you through your entire high school career, and honestly, she sounds like an absolutely awful individual. Always tried to find some kind of angle to put you down and treat you like garbage. And it really sounds like your dad and your stepmom didn't do anything to make it better. Here you are suffering and dealing with this garbage all the time, and nobody's stepping in to try and make things right. That, in my opinion, is so tragic, and it shows pretty blatantly that your dad clearly favors Kayla over you. And obviously, his reaction to Kayla not going to the wedding is so blown out of proportion, it's not even funny. He literally only wants Kayla to be at the wedding just so he can try and save face. And he also just doesn't like the fact that you're putting up boundaries about what you do and don't want at your wedding. Because I really think you have the right idea here. Kayla 100% would try to ruin your wedding if she had the chance. Because if she's willing to do that in high school, then I can guarantee you she would try to do that again. I'm also not totally convinced that Kayla has matured at all. Like sure, maybe she's grown up in some kind of way, and she's seen the error of her ways and she's like grown as an individual, but until she goes to you to apologize and seek your forgiveness, or quite literally show that, hey, I'm a better person now, look, I'm changing, or something along those lines, some kind of effort to show that she's different now, then in my opinion, I agree with you for not wanting her in your life. Because as far as I'm concerned, that is not someone I would consider family. And if I was in your shoes, there's no way she would ever be at my wedding. Am I the jerk for not allowing my friends to drink alcohol in my house? Because right now they are freaking out on me, claiming that I'm a bad person for not allowing them to get drunk at my house. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 37-year-old female and I do not permit alcohol in my house, and I haven't allowed it for at least 15 years now. There is a lot of alcoholism in my family, and in my late teens and early 20s, I was a problem drinker. Fortunately, I realized before things became too bad and have not drunk a single alcoholic drink ever since. I don't object to others around me drinking, I just won't do it myself, and I don't want it in my house. All of my family and friends are aware of this and the reasons why. So anyways, a group of my friends and I enjoy playing board and card games. We have decided to have game nights once a month, taking turns to host in our homes. The first two were fantastic and we really enjoyed ourselves. Some people were drinking alcohol and others weren't. My time is coming up, and in making the preparation, I reminded people that I don't allow alcohol in my house. But if they wanted to bring non-alcoholic beer or wine, then that's okay, and I could make up a few different cocktails that are non-alcoholic. I thought that would be a reasonable compromise, and that people would be fine with not drinking for a 3-hour event. But unfortunately, that was not the case. Two people from the group were extremely unhappy with that. They said that whilst they were aware of my house rule, they just thought that I meant I don't want alcohol in my house, and that I wouldn't object to others bringing some. I don't know where they got that idea, because all events in my house they have come to were alcohol-free. They also said that not permitting them to bring alcohol was inappropriate, and showed that I was a bad host and a bad friend. We did end up getting into a pretty petty argument, where they said I was being a hypocrite for not letting them drink, because I was practically an alcoholic at one point, and if I can't still be around alcohol after all these years, then I'm the one that needed help. I responded and said that if they can't go 3 hours without drinking, then it was them that actually needed the help. We tried not to get the others involved in the argument because we didn't want them to feel like they needed to take sides, but the argument ended up going from an in-person one to an argument on our friends group chat. This has of course led to people taking sides, even those friends who are in the group chat but don't attend the game nights. Now at this point I'm thinking of withdrawing from game nights, mostly because of all the fighting. I still don't want alcohol in my house, but other people have been saying that I'm in the wrong for not complying with our country's social norm of drinking alcohol at events and parties. Others have said that there is nothing wrong with me having boundaries and that people shouldn't automatically expect to be allowed to drink alcohol at every event. I don't really know what to think about it, because they are right that we live in a very huge drinking culture and it is pretty normal to drink at events instead of not drinking. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. For starters, this is your house. That means that your rules are the ones that people have to follow. And it doesn't matter if anybody has any objections to them, they literally have no say in the matter. They can either listen to your house rules or they can leave. And personally, I'm a big believer in that. So the fact that they would say, oh, you're a bad person for not letting us get drunk at your house, as well as all these other terrible things, all of that, in my opinion, is so uncalled for, and it is completely unjustifiable. Like literally, they shouldn't be acting like that, and they shouldn't be ostracizing you, all because you're trying to change and stay sober. And you know what? You've got it right. If they can't spend 3 hours without getting drunk or having a drink, then they're the ones with the problem. You, on the other hand, have had sobriety for about 15 years, and you don't even want the temptation of falling backwards and losing all that progress. So in my opinion, I think your friends are massive jerks for acting this way, and I don't blame you for wanting to pull back from their game nights. An entitled mother tries to take over my wedding, demanding that I allow her daughter to be a flower girl at my ceremony, and I've honestly never been more blown away by somebody's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, my fiancé and I planned our wedding for over a year. We wanted something small yet elegant, something that would have close friends and family. My husband's family is pretty pretty down to earth, except for his aunt, who's known to be over the top with her behavior and entitlement. Everything was going smoothly until the week before the wedding. My husband's entitled aunt called and demanded that we include her 6-year-old daughter as a flower girl. Now, at this point, we already had 2 flower girls, and that was occupied by my nieces, and they were really thrilled about doing this. So I politely declined, explaining that arrangements were already made. Well, this entitled mom didn't take this well. She started a tirade about how her daughter was being excluded unfairly, and how we were ruining her child's self-esteem. I tried to stay calm, but honestly, she was relentless. I had thought that that was the end of it, but oh, I was so wrong. On our wedding day, this entitled mom showed up with her daughter, dressed up in a full-blown white flower girl dress. She marched up to me demanding that her daughter be included in the ceremony. And when I saw that, I was honestly flabbergasted. My husband and I, along with our wedding planner, tried to reason with her, but she just caused a huge scene. She was saying stuff like, "How could you be so selfish on our wedding day?" while also saying that we were destroying a little girl's dream. Now, my usual quiet mother-in-law had simply had enough at this point. She stepped in and told this entitled mother in no uncertain terms that this was our days and it was not her daughter's. She said that if she couldn't respect our wishes, then they would have to leave. Well, when she heard this, she was shocked. She actually tried to argue back, but other family members who were equally fed up with her antics supported my mother-in-law's stance. Realizing that she was outnumbered, this entitled mom left in a huff, with her daughter following in tow. The rest of the wedding went off without a hitch, and everyone had an absolutely great time. We did hear through the grapevine that this aunt complained about us to anyone who would listen, but most of the family knew her history and they took it with a grain of salt. Now, I'm honestly very grateful for my amazing in-laws who stood up for both of us, boosting up my confidence in our marriage's success even more. Wow, that aunt is absolutely out of line. Like, seriously, imagine not taking no for an answer, but also showing up to somebody else's wedding and being like, "Okay, you're gonna let my daughter be your flower girl right now." Like, was she seriously trying to strong arm her way into getting her daughter into this wedding? Like, any rational adult would look at that and be like, wait a second, this is incredibly intrusive. Like, this is not only incredibly wrong, but also really weird. Like, my secondhand embarrassment would be off the charts if I was there. But honestly, it is really cool to see that your in-laws stepped up and decided that they were not gonna let this happen for another second. They clearly know exactly what this aunt is like, and they clearly know how to handle this when things go bad. So honestly, it sounds like you married into a really good family besides this aunt, and hopefully in the future, you don't have to deal with her in this capacity ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not paying the whole cost of a vacation that I was invited to go on, despite the fact that I was never told ahead of time that there would be any cost that I would be responsible for? Because right now, my friend and her mom are calling me a jerk for not paying full price. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So over Christmas break, I was invited to go on a vacation with my friend Jane and her family. Jane is not her real name. Overall, the trip went well. There were 5 of us in total, and we drove to a city about 2 hours away and stayed in an Airbnb for about 5 nights. During the trip, we participated in some activities like rock climbing and horseback riding, as well as a biking tour. We also went hiking as well. However, the night we got back, I was surprised to see a Venmo request for $600 from Jane, all for my portion of the trip. Now, mind you, these costs were not discussed beforehand. I couldn't imagine the activities being this expensive, so I asked for a cost breakdown. In response, Jane and her mom emailed me a spreadsheet of all the costs, which included the trip activities and charges for gas, groceries, and my restaurant meals, but also included my Airbnb cost. In all honesty, I thought charging me for groceries, gas, and the Airbnb was excessive, so I asked Jane if it was possible for her mom to take out these costs. My rationale was that they were going to stay in the Airbnb and travel there regardless, and this is if I came or not. I even shared a bed with Jane, so it's not like I took up a significant amount of space. I also don't have a lot of money saved up since I'm still in high school. Well, Jane's mom said that I need to contribute and pay the full price, and this is where I might be the jerk. I decided to be petty and only send over $500 as I couldn't justify the cost for gas and groceries. Unfortunately, this has strained my relationship with Jane, and we have not hung out since. She thinks I'm a jerk for not paying the full amount and questioning her family on the cost of everything. She said that I embarrassed her and her mom. So honestly, honestly, am I the jerk here? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk in this scenario. If there were costs associated with this trip, then that definitely should have been articulated well in advance. There is literally no good excuse for any of this, and honestly, the fault falls on Jane and her mom. Like, why would you not tell your teenage friend that, yeah, they're gonna have to pay like, what, $600 for the trip? Like, I don't know about you, but that seems like some very valuable information to know ahead of time. And it's also weird that they're like, yeah, you gotta help pay for the Airbnb, but you didn't even like take up any room. You literally shared a bed with your friend. It all really seems like penny pinching after the fact, and that in my opinion is absolutely obnoxious. So no, I don't think you're the jerk, and honestly, is Jane really someone you even want to hang out with in the first place? Because honestly, I can absolutely see this happening again. Am I the jerk for not wanting my wife to tell her family about our financial situation? Because right now she has completely spilled the beans, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I recently found out I will be inheriting some properties and a significant amount of money. I told my wife about it, but made it clear that this is only between us and she is not to tell anyone, especially her big mouth sister. I don't want anyone to know about the inheritance. I don't want them to know that I'm going to invest all of the money and that I'm going to hire a property management company because I intend to keep our current lifestyle. Well, last night at dinner with her parents and siblings, her father congratulated me on the impending windfall, and my brother-in-law pulled me aside to ask about the houses I'll be receiving. He and his wife, and this wife is the big mouth sister, have been saving for a house but haven't saved enough yet, and their credit scores are low. Now, I was very angry with my wife the entire night, but I decided to keep it in check. But on the drive home, I yelled at her. I admit that it wasn't my finest hour, but she did the exact thing I told her not to do. She argued that my secrecy demand was not right and that she had the right and duty to tell her family about our financial situation because it is also her financial situation. We argued for hours, so when I finally had enough, I told her that she can't be trusted to keep our secrets and that I'm not telling her anything else about the inheritance from this minute on. Now, I said that in the heat of the moment, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. She tells her sister everything, and whatever her sister knows, everybody knows. I don't want the entire city to know what's going on with our bank account. We're due to meet our attorney and a financial advisor next week, but I think I will change the appointment to just me. Just to be clear, she's free to discuss anything with her family. I've only had 2 topics where she's not allowed to talk about stuff, and that's namely my health and our finances. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? In my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your wife is completely out of line telling your financial situation to her family. Like, what is she thinking? If you're really inheriting all this money, why would you want family up on your back all the time, making requests from you that you definitely do not want to try and fulfill? It sounds like the original poster is getting a lot of money and a lot of properties, and I know if I was in their shoes, I would want to keep it quiet. Like, I wouldn't want my extended family or my in-laws to know about it, because once they know about it, then everybody's gonna know about it. And I know if I was in the original poster's shoes, I would be so annoyed by this. So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your wife made a massive mistake by explaining any of this to her family, because this is only gonna cause headaches for you and her for the rest of your lives. My mom gave up on me when I was 18 years old and moved back to her home country just to spend time with her boyfriend. And now, after nearly a decade, I have finally confronted her about it, and I'm honestly not sure of what to make of my situation. Here's what happened. So when I was a child, my mother and my father had huge arguments. Our house was an absolute nightmare. They both liked to drink and used to drink and have fights at home. My dad even became physical at times with her. They both ended up divorcing, and my mother, my brother, and myself moved out to another house. But here's the thing. My mother was never financially independent. At the beginning, she relied on my father for money, and after divorce, she relied on my brother, who was around 22 back then. Right when I became 18 years old, she found a man in her country and moved back, leaving me with my brother because my father was absent at the time and created a brand new family. I had started working apart from studying at that time, and I tried to live with my brother somehow, but he used to gamble and even sell furniture, apart from not washing his dishes, and just live like a pig. We argued a lot until I told him to leave and find a new apartment because I couldn't deal with his dirt all the time. So eventually time passed, and I'm 27 now, and for a whole year, my mom underwent a really bad financial situation, with me helping her financially every single month. I went to visit her several times for a short time, and I saw that her drinking habits got quite bad. She drinks at night and she also smokes, which are habits that started irritating me so much that we had fights almost every single day. Once I'm back, she started saying I'm ungrateful, while also saying that I started fights for no reason. She only calls me when she needs something and never calls me to see how I am. On top of that, she told me that if I ever wanted to go and live in her country, I should find a new place since she won't accept me in her house. And it's not like I depend on her. I actually have many skills and I can easily find a job. Apart from studying, I've been taking care of myself since I was 18 years old, and now I have a degree and a master's degree with a proper job. Overall, I just felt terribly disappointed by her. First of all, she left me when I was 18 years old just because she wanted to do her own life and found a boyfriend in her home country and moved back. Then she tells me all of this, and I told her I no longer want her in my life, that the only ungrateful person here is her. When I start telling her the truth, she hangs up and says that she's tired. At some point, I felt like I had a mother, but now I honestly don't. She's been living at her parents' house since she moved back, and she never actually cared about the fact that I was only 18 years old and that I had no father by my side either, and this is when she left me to go live her life. I only had a gambler as a brother, as well as my studies and my job, and I needed her at that time. When I tell her this, she says to me that I'm already an adult, and while my father has been physically absent in my life, he still paid for all of my studies. So honestly, am I wrong in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're wrong at all for confronting your mom about this, because seriously, she does not sound like a good mother. Sure, you were 18 years old, but it really does sound like she kicked you to the curb. Also, she could hook up with this new boyfriend she met in her home country. Like, I can only imagine having literally no one there to help you out and still picking yourself back up and figuring out your life. Like, that honestly sounds awful, and I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. So truly, with all things considered, I don't blame you for confronting your mom about all of this, because the way she's been acting is incredibly entitled, and in my opinion, I don't think you deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to start using my first name despite the pleas from my family? Because right now, I prefer my middle name and I'm thinking about changing it, and I honestly at this point seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I am named after my grandmother Nancy, who is my mom's mom. There is a bit of a tradition in my family to name the first grandkid of each gender after one of the grandparents of the same gender. I was the first girl, and my mom wanted to follow this tradition, but my dad didn't, so I was named after my mom's mom. My dad chose my middle name of Sky, and ever since I was in kindergarten, I have been using the name Sky instead of Nancy. My family called me Nancy for years anyways, but eventually everybody else would call me Sky when they wanted me. My teachers called me Sky, my friends' parents, our neighbors, our doctor, literally everybody. So eventually my family started to call me Sky as well, and sometimes Nancy would slip in, but I personally never used it. Now, my mom and my grandmother were the people that were most upset. My grandmother, because she felt like she didn't get her grandchild named after her, all because it was never used, and my mom because she wanted the tradition too, but also she doesn't like Sky, and only said yes to it as a middle name because my dad didn't like Nancy and she didn't want to be unfair. Now here's the thing, I have toyed with the idea of changing my name when I turn 18 years old, but it feels like that would be an absolute nightmare. Ever since Christmas, my mom, grandma, and some other family members on my mom's side have suggested that I should use Nancy again. My grandma told me that it would mean a lot to her, and she said I'm getting to an age where the name doesn't seem so bad or old. My mom even told me that Sky isn't really a name I should be going into my adult life using. She said that Nancy will sound much better. She also told me that it is my name, it's my real name, and it would be a pain to use a name that isn't my legal first name as an adult. Other family members said that I should do it to make my grandmother happy, or I should do it because it seems like I'm rejecting my mom, which is really weird to me. My mom and grandmother sat me down last Wednesday and told me that it means so much to them and pleaded with me to go by Nancy. They said I have used Sky for 11 years now, and also said that it might be time to grow up a little and use my name and use the family name. My mom told me it's embarrassing to her because some of her friends have asked why I hate my grandmother or my name so bad that I use my middle name like it's my actual name. But you know what? I told them that I don't want to be called Nancy, and I will not start using it instead of Sky. I told them that I am Sky, and that it might not be easy for them, but it's what I prefer, and I'm the one living with my name. I am the person who has to introduce myself after all. Now, my dad is on my side and has tried to get my mom to back off, but she has been really unhappy since Wednesday and has been a little bit hostile since my refusal. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely definitely not the jerk. This is honestly so weird. People use their middle name to refer to themselves all the time. They're trying to make it sound like you're disrespecting the family, but honestly, your mom and grandma just need to get over themselves. And for the record, the name Sky is a very normal name. Don't listen to anything they're saying. Like seriously, if you don't want to be called Nancy, then no one can make you be called Nancy. There are plenty of people who have gone through the exact same thing you're describing right now, and the fact that your mom and grandma are trying to make this seem like some outlandish thing is honestly just manipulation on their part, and I would not pay attention to that in the slightest. So truly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your mom and grandma are being incredibly weird and very manipulative, and if you want to be called Sky from here on out, then there's honestly not much they can do to try and stop you. An entitled customer freaks out when he sees that he has to wait in a line of about 150 people just to get a rental car from the airport that we just landed in. And I've honestly never seen a bigger temper tantrum from a grown man in my life. Here's what happened. So this took place in the summer of 2016, and it was the last time I flew on my own dime. My 90-minute flight arrived more than 8 hours late because of weather, and we landed 3 times in random places because our destination was at the center of a curb stomping from the weather gods. Many flights arrived around the same time in the same circumstances. Looking around baggage claim, it was like someone rounded up all the extras from The Walking Dead and got them fresh clothes from Goodwill. So this is where we are, collectively unable to care for another second. I boarded the shuttle to the rental car agency of choice, along with dozens of other poor souls who just wanted their awful compacts to get out of this abysmal place. There was already a considerable line, and the desks were all at full capacity. It looked like some people were making some unexpected overtime because they looked almost half as miserable, albeit still professional, as we do. I mean, nobody wants to be in a big city airport at 3 o'clock in the morning, and no one has done this to anybody else. It just seems like the gods themselves had a party, and everyone here was on cleanup duty. So needless to say, it was absolutely awful. It really sucked. That's when this middle-aged jerk enters the scene. This jerk was a special type of jerk and was the only one here having a bad day. He took one look as he entered and made a noise that caused the majority of people to look up and give him a look that basically said, "What's your problem, buddy?" Well, it turned out that we were his problem. That's when yelling suddenly ensued. Fortunately, the employees who totally get paid enough to deal with the adult-sized child at 3 o'clock in the morning on their day off were the direct target of all that spewed forth from this jerk. We, the offending line, merely caught some of the splatter. And basically, this guy was not going to wait in this line, and that he didn't wait in lines, but instead lines wait on him. This was also 7 years ago, so some of the dialogue has faded from memory, but his mantra throughout all of this was him screeching that he was a preferred customer. Now, where the customer service person had shuffled him off to was definitely at a weird angle. It was inhibiting visibility, but it certainly sounded like he was crying. There were no details on why he was more important than the rest of us, you know, aside from his super shiny preferred status. This continued at various volumes for upwards of almost 20 minutes. During those 20 minutes, one of the desks ended up closing because the fellow working it had to deal with this jerk instead of checking people out and make the line shorter. Well, I want to tell you that it didn't work, but he did end up getting out of there ahead of me. Now, given that option number 2 was to hit him in the head with a shovel, I sort of understood the customer service rep's point of view. I mean, 150 people are too many to keep a secret. But on the plus side, there are now 150 people with his face emblazoned on their memory, who, if they were stumbled upon drowning, they would throw him a cinder block. We were all family at 3 in the morning except for that one jerk. And honestly, I just hope I never have to deal with a preferred customer like that ever again. Wow, that sounds like an obnoxious situation that seriously, I don't know if I would be able to keep my cool in. This guy seriously is walking up on 150 people at 3 in the morning and is then gonna act like he's the most important person on planet Earth. It's like, seriously, buddy, we're all trying to get out of here. No one wants to be at this airport. It's 3 in the morning and we're all miserable. The weather sucks, this line sucks, and pretty much this entire airport sucks. Not to mention the line of people having to be held up, all because this jerk is making a scene. Like, is it really that hard to just get in line and figure it out as you go along? There's a difference between exerting yourself and really making sure you get the customer service you deserve. And then there's this guy who's screaming and crying all because there's a line. And because he was screaming and crying, it screwed it up for everybody else. No one else could get their stuff on time because he pulled one of the people away from their desk. Like, he literally made the problem he didn't like even worse because of his complaining. So truly, I know if I was in your shoes, I would be very unhappy about dealing with this guy at 3 in the morning because honestly, everybody just wants to leave. And this guy freaking out and screaming like the world is ending is definitely not not going to make any situation any better. A group of entitled teenagers tried to rob our store, sneaking merchandise into their coffee cups and their backpacks, all under the hope that we wouldn't catch them in the act. But after dealing with so many blatant thieves at our store, me and my manager were ready for just about anything. Because as a result, we caught them red-handed, forcing them to give back all the stuff they tried to steal. Here's what happened. So about a month ago, there was more theft than normal going on in a makeup store that I work at. And it's because of the fact that it was winter break. Unfortunately, when the teenagers in my area get a bit of free time, they feel it's appropriate to use it to come into our store and steal from us. We were finding wrapper after wrapper, box after box stuffed under aisles and in displays. It was really annoying because it reflects really poorly on the hours that we get. Anyways, towards the end of Christmas break, we started to slow down. People had bought all their presents and spent their gift cards, so there wasn't much going on. Well, that is except for this night in question. Me, my manager, and my 2 coworkers were the only employees there. We were only an hour from close, and there was maybe 2 or 3 customers meandering around the store. I was replacing all the trash bags while my coworkers were cleaning up the register area. At my store, it's sort of an unspoken rule that we make a point of greeting every single person who comes through the front doors. So when a group of these 3 teenage girls came through, both my coworkers greeted them. Well, they did what all teenagers who come in to steal do. They don't acknowledge the greeters in hopes of coming off as unapproachable. But my coworkers are seasoned retailers, so they immediately get on the walkie-talkies and alerted me to keep an eye out. My first greeter coworker said to me, "Look, the both of us just said hi to those girls, and they were acting a little bit weird. You might want to stay in that area and keep an eye on them." I said to them that I will, and I'll leave the trash over in the counter and I'll just pick it up later. Now, I didn't want the girls to feel like I was following them just in case we were wrong, and they really just didn't want to be talked to. So I stood in the aisle on the left side of the aisle that they were in. I had a direct view of them, but they would have had to come stand at the very end just to see me. At first, they were just having a bit of fun, spraying our hand sanitizer testers at each other and opening the sugar scrubs to smell them. Nothing that I honestly really care about. But then the sound of crinkling paper made me lean in closer, just to see what was going on. I noticed that the girl ripping the packet open was also holding a Starbucks cup, one of the white ones with a flat lid for hot drinks. I watched as she took the hand sanitizer out of its packaging and removed the lid from her drink. I then watched her put the hand sanitizer in the drink cup and then replace the lid, and I knew I was going to have to tell my manager. So I jumped on my walkie-talkie and I said, "Does the manager have a walkie on? Because I just watched one of those girls steal a hand sanitizer." The manager responded in the affirmative and asked where they were. I told them that they were in the bath aisle and that I think they're heading up to the front very soon. Well, unfortunately, that wasn't entirely correct. The girls rounded the corner to the next aisle, which is the one that housed all the hairbrushes. A different girl, who had one of those Loungefly bags, unzipped it and put one of the Harry Potter themed hairbrushes in her bag. I mean, it didn't even zip up all the way. She tried to zip it up hard, but the end of the handle stuck out only slightly. They promptly abandoned that aisle and started making their way to the front of the store. I said to my manager that they're coming up right now. They put something in their drink cup and there's something in their backpack too. Now, we're not allowed to accuse people of stealing. We can get in trouble if we're incorrect, and we're definitely not allowed to hold them back from leaving. So I wasn't sure what my manager could do, but I wanted her to be aware. They made it up to the door when my manager stopped them, asking something she asked everybody who leaves our store empty-handed. The manager then asked the girl if there was something we could help them find today. The first girl said, "No, you guys don't have what we want." My manager responded by saying, "Oh, okay. Well, is there any way I can get back the stuff you took from us? You know, so I don't have to trespass you from the store?" The second girl chimed in and said, "Are you accusing us of stealing? We did not take anything." The manager then said, "I'm not accusing you. I can see one of my hairbrushes sticking out of your friend's bag." The girls all just sort of looked at each other, not sure what to do. Eventually, the girl with the backpack ripped the hairbrush out of it and handed it to the manager. They started to walk past her to the door when the manager stopped them again. She said to them, "Can you please give me back whatever you put in that cup? Then can you please just go?" The girl with the cup huffed and rolled her eyes. Nevertheless, she opened it and took out the hand sanitizer that was now covered in what looked to be hot chocolate or maybe some sugary coffee. She put it in the manager's hand, and then my manager said, "If you guys come back with your parents, I'm gonna have a talk with them because this is honestly really ridiculous, girls." They all then left really quickly, and we got to go about our business for the rest of the night. And with all the things I've seen at this store, as well as all the people I've seen steal from our store, this definitely could have been a lot worse. Wow, I cannot stand people who steal. It is such a dishonest thing to do, and honestly, I just just don't like it. I don't know about you, but for me, whenever I want to buy something, I feel so much better about buying it after I earn it with my own hard work. If it was just handed to me or if I stole it for some reason, I wouldn't have that same satisfaction of getting it because I worked hard. So whenever I see stories like this, I get really frustrated because it's so annoying that there's dishonest people like this in the world. Like they were totally ready to walk out with all that merchandise. And that, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled mom demands that I give up my seat for her son, claiming that he needs it more than I do, and that I should give it up just to do the right thing. And I'm honestly astonished by this lady's audacity. Here's what happened. So I work in the city and I usually take the bus home. As anyone who commutes knows, these buses can get packed, especially during the rush hour. On this particular day, I managed to snag a seat, which felt like winning the lottery after a long day at work. I had my earbuds in and I was half asleep, lost in my music. A few stops into my ride, an entitled mom and her son, who looked to be about 10 years old, got on the bus. It was clear from the get-go that there were no seats available, but that didn't stop this entitled mother from scanning the bus like she was on a mission. She then locked eyes with me and beelined in my direction. Now, the entitled mother's tone was more demanding than polite. She said to me, "Excuse me, could you let my son sit down? He's really tired from his day and he needs to sit." Now, I was surprised that she singled me out, since there were other people, even some elderly, standing as well. I was about to respond, maybe even stand up, despite feeling exhausted myself, when a very helpful lady nearby spoke up. She said in a kind but firm tone, "Ma'am, it's not right to single out someone for their seat. We are all tired after a long day, so perhaps your son can manage standing for just a little bit." Well, after she heard this, the entitled mother's face turned a shade of red. She responded and said, "But he is just a child and children need to sit. It's common courtesy." The bus at this point was unusually silent, with everyone seemingly tuned into our conversation. But the helpful woman from earlier, undeterred, replied and said, "I understand, but so do the elderly, the disabled, and those who have had long days at work. We can't expect others to always give up their comfort for us. It's a valuable lesson in consideration and patience." The entitled mother looked ready to argue more, but seemed to realize that the bus audience wasn't on her side. She muttered something under her breath about rude people and then moved slightly away, still standing up. The rest of the ride was uneventful, but the atmosphere felt a bit charged. When my stop arrived, I got up and I passed the helpful lady from earlier. She gave me a small smile and a nod, as if to say that you did the right thing. I nodded back in gratitude, feeling relief, but also a bit surprised at how the situation unfolded. This is a really fun story for a few reasons, but my favorite reason is the fact that the original poster was not alone in realizing that this situation was ridiculous. Like seriously, the entitled mom in this story was completely out of line. They 100% singled out the original poster for some weird reason and decided for some reason that they're gonna take their seat. And it's like, seriously, that is so annoying. It would have been just as easy to stand there and wait for your stop instead of making a scene and making literally everything so awkward. So good for the original poster for not only having backup in that situation, but also in a roundabout way standing your ground, because the way that entitled mom was acting was really uncalled for. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be super annoyed with her attitude. My husband has thrown me under the bus to his family with his silence and complete lack of spine. And at this point, after dealing with so much drama, I'm now unsure of how to move forward. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I have been trying to have a baby for years, but with no luck. I would be happy to adopt, but my husband's family is against it, and has also influenced my husband to also be against it. After our second year of trying, I begged my husband to go with me to get a checkup to see if either of us or both of us were infertile. He was strongly opposed to this, as all the men in his family are extremely fertile, but eventually gave in, and as it turns out, his count, if you know what I mean, is extremely low. He was as heartbroken as I was, and we then both got into therapy. After a year of no longer trying, I got pregnant, but we lost the baby, and we were absolutely devastated. My husband blamed himself and proposed that we start the process of getting into a family planning center, also that we could find a donor. He asked me that we not tell either of our families about this, or even our friends, and I agreed, because I would never want to emasculate him. With the help of our donor, I was able to successfully become pregnant, and we had our little girl last year. She is healthy and progressing amazingly, and I thank God for her every single day. I kept my promise and I never told anyone. anyone. However, my husband is struggling with connecting with our little girl. Now here is where the trouble begins. It all started last month when he went out of town with his brothers for their friend's bachelor party. While on the trip, my husband told his brothers about our infertility issues and that our baby wasn't biologically his. One of his brothers must have told his wife, who also told my husband's mother. Now, I don't know why she would tell my husband's mother, except that she has never liked me. Their mother then came to our house and called me a lying jerk and tried to get my husband to leave with her. Well, he just stood there silent. I told her that it was my husband's decision not to tell anyone, and she asked him if that was true again, but he was just silent, which his mother took as me being a liar. So she then went to our nursery and started taking everything that she'd ever given us for the baby back. I told her I didn't care about it, and I made more than enough to buy everything she gave us myself, and I could get it in better quality. This set her off, and she called my baby a terrible name. And when she said this, I did something I know was harsh, but I believe that she deserved it. I physically pushed her out of the door. I didn't hit her, but I did put my hands on her shoulders, pushing her out of the door, and I threw all her awful things out with her. After spirits had calmed down, I realized that my husband had said nothing when his mother was berating me, as well as her calling me a liar. And when she called our child that awful name, I asked him why he was silent, and he said that he wasn't raised to be disrespectful the way that I was, and that his mother hadn't said anything that wasn't true. She was just hurtful with what she said, and that we should just let it go and wait for his mother to forgive us. I told him that I would never let it go, and that his mother and anyone else who agreed with her was not welcomed in our home, and that I don't need to be forgiven when I've done nothing wrong. He then said the house was his, and as the head of the family, it was his decision. I told him fine, but why did he allow her to call me a liar, as well as a jerk, if those things are not true? And our child should never be called the names that she said. He just repeated that he would not argue with his mother. After that, I stopped speaking with him, and I started gathering up my daughter's things and my purse, and I walked out the door with her. He tried to stop me and told me that I couldn't take his daughter anywhere without him, and at that moment, I lost a little bit of composure. I told him that she wasn't his daughter. He'd proved that he didn't see her as a daughter when he had allowed his mother to call her such awful names, and I told him that she wasn't his. He then broke down into tears and begged me to come back inside, but at the time, I felt nothing. He just looked incredibly pathetic to me. I've now taken my baby with me, and I've gone back to my parents and finally told my family the truth, which really feels good. They are completely in support of my decision and are not allowing my spineless husband anywhere near us, as he still refuses to apologize to me or to even set the record straight with his family. However, I told the sister-in-law that I was close to the truth, and she told the rest of his family. Half of his family is understanding, while the other half is on his mother's side, but they are all mad at my husband. I need time to cool off, but I know eventually my husband and I will need to figure our marriage out. One thing is for certain though, is that I will not return to his house until he apologizes to me and promises to protect me and his daughter fiercely. I want to see this in action form, starting with him telling his mother what she did was wrong and banning her from coming to see us until she asked for my forgiveness. We were also planning on having more children as he wants a big family, but that is now off the table as I don't believe he is ready and we both need to get back into therapy. So I'm honestly just blown away by all of this and I seriously don't know what to do. I think you perfectly described your husband as spineless because that is exactly what he is. This guy stood there and let his mother scream at you and your baby, calling her awful names, all because the both of you agreed to have a donor. And yes, the both of you did agree to that. This wasn't a one-sided decision. This literally took the both of you to figure this out. So the fact that he threw you under the bus and tried to make this seem like this was all your decision and that you somehow forced him into agreeing to this is honestly so disgusting. Like your husband is a massive jerk and there is no excuse for his behavior. So honestly, I wish you the best of luck moving forward because your husband is an absolute piece of garbage. And the fact that he allowed this all to happen to you is honestly completely unacceptable. My sister-in-law rolled her eyes at me when my husband took me to the hospital for a medical emergency. And right now I am feeling so angry at her reaction. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so to start things out, my sister-in-law absolutely hates me. I don't know why, but she just always has. It is so obvious and everybody can tell. Even my own husband, and even before we got married. I swear, she's the type of sister who is in love with her brother or something like that. It freaks me out, and I've dealt with her attitude and being the bigger person now for almost 5 years. So she came and stayed at our house this weekend because my brother-in-law sister-in-law is getting married, and she lives a state away. We were nice enough to let her stay with us instead of a hotel, as we do have a big house and it wasn't really an issue. I'm also, for the record, 31 weeks pregnant. My sister-in-law came on Thursday and the wedding was today. On Friday night, I started to have some really bad stomach cramps, and I really felt like I needed to vomit. This isn't really news to me. I've dealt with hyperemesis gravidarum my whole pregnancy, which honestly really sucks. I ended up calling it an early night, while my husband, my sister-in-law, and a few friends hung out in our living room and backyard. Well, at around 1 o'clock a.m., my husband came to bed when everybody was gone. He woke me up, and that's when the vomiting started. Again, not abnormal, but I noticed there was blood in the vomit. I immediately started crying, and my husband wanted to take me to the emergency room. Well, my sister-in-law woke up hearing my husband's keys and asked me what was wrong. I explained what happened, and I kid you not, this woman rolls her eyes and walks back to bed. Even though she didn't say anything, it's been eating me up for days. The whole wedding, all I could think of was how much of a jerk she is. I want her gone as soon as possible. I even want to call her out. And I want to do this so badly, but I don't want to be a jerk. I mean, how would you handle this? Would you call her out or would you let it go? She does live a state away, so I hardly even see her anymore. I want so bad to be the bigger person, but at this point, I don't know if I can. My husband says to just be the bigger person, as he doesn't really like her either, so we don't see her much. But it would just feel so good to me and my pregnancy hormones to tell her to shove it. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, your sister-in-law is a giant jerk. That really is unacceptable, and seriously, I don't blame you for being upset. I know if I was in your shoes and I was going through all of that in the middle of the night, I would be furious the next day having to deal with her. Here you are opening up your home so that she doesn't have to stay at a hotel, and then she really has the audacity to be like, oh wow, the pregnant woman who's feeling sick is going to the hospital. It's like, lady, what are you talking about? I'm throwing up in a way that's not normal and I'm pregnant. Like, that really does not seem like an overreaction in the slightest. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would be telling the husband that no, I don't want her at the home anymore. Like, I completely understand where your husband's coming from, or even where you're coming from, where you're like, listen, I don't want to make a big deal and I just want to be the bigger person. But in my opinion, that can only go so far. Like, I can understand that every now and then, but this lady disrespected you in your own home. Like, that is not okay, and in my opinion, that should not happen again. And hopefully, for the sake of you and your husband, you never have to deal with her in this capacity ever again. My new job is treating me terribly, constantly treating me like garbage, as well as practically pushing me out of my job. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So I currently work in an Italian fine dining establishment as a server. Previous to this, I worked as a bartender and server. I managed some restaurants over the years as well, and bounced around quite a bit over the years due to moving towards the greater Boston area. In late October, a former coworker coerced the owner of his restaurant to reach out to me because they were in dire need of help for the holiday season, and my friend recommended me even though I was managing at the time. This owner called me and practically begged me to come work there and gave me an ultimatum that if I didn't take the job at the time, it wouldn't be there. He promised me that I would fit right in and that money would be great immediately when I started. Well, fast forward to when I started, and I was essentially treated like garbage by my coworkers, and my managers follow a server hierarchy. Servers that have been there for years consistently get the best tables nonstop and literally leave with $800 to $1,200 every night on a regular basis. Meanwhile, I'm stuck with lesser tables consistently, and I have to fight to make $300 to $400 per night. And these servers put in the bare minimum. They show up 30 minutes late, and they do no side work at all. They are extremely greedy, and if they know that you've got a good table, they then tell the owner, whom they're very close with. As time went on, I voiced my frustration regarding this due to the fact that the owner reached out to me randomly one day and asked me to come and work there, and that I left a management position for this. Well, when said owner heard this, he came back from his home in Florida and basically told us that he is only required to take care of his essential family, and that people like me will just get what they get. Some people have tried to help me make more money, considering I have my first child due in May, but unfortunately, I don't think it's on par with how hard I work and how I am being treated. And essentially, me showing any kind of concern is being chalked up to me being a jerk. A week ago, the owner called me and told me that I was going to be let go because there wasn't enough hours for the less busy season. But I insisted that he let me keep my job because of my child that is coming. Eventually, he let in, but now I just dread going there. The only thing keeping me going there is the real potential that somebody will quit and I can bump up to be one of those servers. Is there any way to circumvent any of this? Or should I try to find something better? What should I do? Okay, the fact that the owner said, hey, I'm gonna fire you, and you basically had to beg him to keep your job should be enough of a sign to you that no, this is not a place you want to keep working at. First of all, this guy was absolutely talking out of his rear end when he was telling you that, oh yeah, the money's gonna be great. You're gonna make so much money, it's not even gonna be a problem. But then, as soon as you start, reality sets in, and you can obviously tell that this guy was straight up lying to you. It is really not fair, and it's downright disrespectful, especially because you now know this guy's true colors, and he has shown his hand. Because you're not someone that he considers family, he's just gonna let you fall by the wayside and only care about the people he's been with forever. Like, this owner does not care about you in the slightest, and the sooner you realize that, the easier it's gonna be to find another job. So truly, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this, because the way you're being treated is unacceptable, and you absolutely deserve a lot better than this awful place. My entitled Karen HR manager decides to suspend me from work after only being late to clock in by 1 minute. So I decided to maliciously comply and get some petty revenge, resulting in abject chaos, as well as the CEO needing to intervene just to make sure that a massive, expensive project doesn't go down the drain. And I've honestly never been happier to get revenge in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so to start things off, for the past 5 years, I've been working at this mid-sized tech company. It's been great, or at least it was, until 6 months ago when we got a new HR manager by the name of Susan. Susan is not her real name. Now, Susan is the kind of person who loves the rules a bit too much. She came in with this idea of revolutionizing the workplace, but all she did was implement a bunch of unnecessary and strict policies. The one that really got under everybody's skin was her new attendance policy. It stated that if anyone was even a minute late more than 3 times in a month, they'd face immediate suspension without pay. No excuses, no exceptions. This was crazy, considering we're all seasoned professionals and we're definitely not school kids. But Susan was adamant and the policy was enforced to the letter. Now, I'm usually very punctual, but life happens, right? Well, just my luck. I ended up being late 3 times in 1 month. The first was because of a massive traffic jam. The second was due to a power outage that affected my alarm. And the third, well, I just overslept. Each time I was barely 5 minutes late, but Susan didn't care. So she slapped me with a suspension notice. I was fuming. But then I remembered something important, namely our employee handbook. I had read that thing cover to cover when I first started, and something about the suspension policy stood out to me. I dug up my copy and found the section I was looking for. The policy stated that suspended employees must leave company premises immediately and are not allowed to engage in any work-related activities during their suspension. And it's right about then that a plan started to form in my head. You see, at that time, I was in the middle of a critical point for a major client. It was a huge deal for the company, and I was the lead developer. Without me, the project would grind to a halt. So I decided to follow Susan's policy to the letter. The next day, I walked into Susan's office and handed her the suspension notice, along with a printed copy of the employee's handbook suspension policy. I then told her that as the company policy, I will be leaving the premises immediately, and I will not partake in any work-related activities during my suspension, and that includes the Johnson project. Now, when I said that, the color drained from her face. She said to me, "You can't just leave the Johnson project." But you know what? I just shrugged my shoulders and I said, "Company policy, Susan. I'm sure you wouldn't want to break the rules." I then gathered my things and I left the office. Fast forward and the fallout was immediate. The project team was in disarray without me, and the client was getting antsy about the missed deadlines. The CEO himself called me 2 days into my suspension, begging me to come back. But I explained that I was merely following company policies as enforced by Susan. Well, fast forward, and to make a long story short, the CEO had to intervene. My suspension was lifted and I was back at work the next day. And do you want to know what the best part about this was? Susan's ridiculous policies were all reviewed and mostly scrapped. She is still with the company, but let's just say her enthusiasm for rulemaking has significantly diminished. Honestly, good for the original poster. That is such a funny way to get revenge. Like, here's the thing. If you're just a few minutes late to work, it is really not that big of a deal, especially as an adult. Like, things can happen out of your control, no matter how early in the morning you get up to go to work. So when the electricity goes off and it destroys your alarm, or if there's some kind of like traffic jam or some kind of like accident, like, that's not your fault. You should not be penalized for that. So the fact that Susan was really gonna treat you so poorly and seriously suspend you for being just a few minutes late to work throughout the month, that is seriously going so overboard, it's not even fair. And I just love the fact that out of anybody there who could have been suspended, she decided to suspend befriend the person who's leading the development for this big project. And I just love the fact that she's like, wait a second, no, you can't go. But it's like, if you're gonna follow the rules, then so am I. So hopefully this never happens again, because honestly, this Susan lady sounds absolutely obnoxious. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My coworkers' family and neighbors think that I'm some nefarious person, as I'm coming to her house just to try and pick her up for dinner. And honestly, with all things considered, as well as how intimidating all of them were surrounding me, I am seriously just glad that I got out unharmed. Here's what happened. So on Saturday night, I was supposed to go to dinner with some folks from work, including a girl who said she needed a ride. Her car isn't the most reliable, so I said that I would give her a lift. She's about 10 years younger than me, she's the shortest girl at the office, and she is very, very Hispanic. And of course, I say this not as a put down, but it's essential in the context of the story. I set off a few minutes early to the address I'd been given and wound up pulling up to a home with signs outside that said, "Smile, buddy, you're on camera." And when I saw those, I grinned. I liked the attitude that those signs displayed, and I just really hoped I was in the right place. So I texted the girl from work, and I told her that I was ready for her, and she said that she'll be right there. So I got out of my car, did a bit of a stretch, and then leaned against my car and started going through my phone. While I was waiting and minding my own business, I sensed that somebody was approaching. What gave it away was someone saying, "I think you came to the wrong neighborhood," with two other guys chuckling at the line as they approached. They looked to be about my age or maybe a bit younger, between their mid-20s and early 30s. I didn't see any tattoos, but they were all about the same size, and they had 3 to my 1. And those are not the kind of odds that you want to see. I started doing that thing people do when they're about to panic and they're trying to calm the situation down. So I was waving my hands up and down, and I was saying to them, "Hey man, I'm just doing my thing. I work with a girl that lives in this house, and she asked me to give her a ride." I turned to point at the house in question and was greeted with a sight of an older man holding a baseball bat, leaving the house and also approaching myself and my new friends. He was smacking his palm with the bat and chuckling in a menacing fashion as he came. While I was busy staring at the man with the baseball bat, all 3 of the other dudes started to invade my personal space. The older guy with the baseball bat comes up while still smacking his palm with a bat, and in a tone that promises violence is imminent, he said to me, "You should get in your car and go home before something bad happens." Now, at that moment, I was torn between just sticking around and doing my own thing, as I mentioned earlier, and also thinking, oh no, this could be really bad. But thankfully, my saving grace rapidly approached. A gray sedan was driving up the street, and upon seeing me surrounded by other people, absolutely floored it and squealed into the driveway of the house. Out of the car flew the girl I was supposed to give a ride to, and she was angry. She immediately starts speaking Spanish rapidly and in a furious tone. I swear, her temper added a good foot in height, while she read all 4 of the dudes who got in my face the riot act. She actually started shaking a finger under the noses of the first bunch of dudes, who all made sorry noises in Spanish and slunk off towards wherever they came from with their metaphorical tails between their legs. And then our hero turns on the man with the bat, who has since hidden the bat behind his back like that's gonna save him. While all this is happening, the other occupant of the car has gotten out. It's our hero's grandmother, and she's walking her way down the driveway, completely bypassing the girl from work and the man with the bat to come up right to me and start to talk to me. She says to me, "Oh, you're the nice man who fixes my granddaughter's computer when she cries about it. It's so nice to meet you. Thank you very much for driving her to dinner. Please try and make sure she doesn't get into any trouble." I said, "You're very welcome," and then she said, "You know, I don't think my granddaughter needs much looking after, nor do I think that I want to be the one to tell her that she can't do something that she wants. That seems unsafe." I finished in a musing tone, while the man with the bat, who was indeed my coworker's father, continues to get scolded. Then the sweet old lady laughs at something that I said, and then her tone shifts, with her barking something in Spanish, in a tone reserved for little boys who have gotten a case of the clevers. And then she points at me and my coworker, and then growls something else. Now, I have absolutely no idea what was said, but the Batman is now looking at the ground. He walks over and takes the nice woman's elbow and leads her up the stairs and into the house. Now, I'm just stood there trying to figure out what in the world just happened to me. And I think the slackjaw gave it away, as my coworker says to me, "My dad thought you were my boyfriend and called some neighbors. I'm really sorry. Are you ready to go?" And honestly, with all things considered, that truly was one of the scariest moments of my life. Man, I don't know what I would have done in that situation. Here you are trying to pick up a coworker, and suddenly it's a 4-on-1 fight, and one of them is sporting a baseball bat. I'm pretty sure if I was in the original poster's shoes, I probably would have just gotten in my car and left and let my coworker pretty much sort it out from there. But good for you for somewhat standing your ground, as well as getting out of that situation unharmed, because honestly, that whole scenario sounds incredibly scary. My girlfriend of 2 years suddenly took everything and left me without saying a thing, and at this point, I am still blown away and I seriously don't know what to do. So the title pretty much says it all. 5 days ago, I tried to call her a few times throughout the day while I was at my tattoo shop just to check on her. We both do it daily and we chat, but she didn't answer and didn't call back. And later on, it went straight to busy. I eventually got worried if she's okay, but checked her Instagram and then other messaging apps that she has, and it's right then that I understood I was blocked on everything. She didn't block my business number, but eventually she blocked that one as well after I tried on that number too. I came home to see that along with her personal belongings, my cat, my laptop and iPad, as well as my drawing tablet and tattoo machines were all gone. Also her favorite cologne of mine and her favorite leather jacket of mine. Everything was completely missing. All of it gone with no notes. And I have nothing to understand any of this. Recently, she's been asking me for more money here and there, and I gave some to her the 2 times that she asked for it, and that was so she could buy a new iPhone and some other little things. I don't care about the money. I make enough to rebuy the things, but I feel awful and broken. I also miss her and I literally don't know anything. I think I should be angry or hate her or something like that, but she was the best before leaving suddenly. She's beautiful, she's very introverted, she wants to be back at home all the time, but talks a lot to me and our friends, and she has had a history of depression. She hasn't looked depressed since the first couple of weeks of us dating, and yes, she gets sad moods every now and then, just like anybody else, but I've tried to be there for her. Her therapist kept saying that she's doing great for a long time, and I don't believe that she was struggling with depression. I don't know where she is, we didn't fight, I mean we never did, and whatever way I try to reach out to her, she blocks it. All her friends are my best friends or their partners, and all of whom she has also blocked. Her only friend I knew and had the contacts for lives in another city now, and told me that it's not her business, but also told me that she answered her call too, and that she's very sorry. I just don't understand what happened. We painted together, we watched great movies together, we worked out, we talked and laughed, we had a good life. We would even go shopping and have date nights and parties. I absolutely insanely love her, and she does too. Well, I thought she did at least, and I've had enough relationships to know that she did. Not long ago, when I had visited my old man, she FaceTimed me to talk in my earbuds through the night and just to hear me breathe. It's probably cringe to you and it would be to me, but that's just how close we are. So I really don't know what happened. She had asked me to get a very specific ring with a very specific jewel a year into our relationship, and we talked about it a lot, including our future. She was so excited that I cared to have the ring made, and it wasn't a super expensive ring to sell. She asked for one made of a certain wood. From her family, I've only met her sister. Everyone else who's close family to her is abroad. Her sister tells me weird things, like asking me why I left her and what I've done, as well as asking me where she is. She eventually stopped messaging me after I stopped replying time and time again that I'm just as confused. I'm at the point right now where I don't know what to do. I can barely eat anything when I get home and I feel sad a lot, like my heart is about to explode in my chest and I find it hard to breathe. I didn't tell this to my friends either. I just told them that we broke up when they asked why she's blocked all contact. Should I just forget about all of this without knowing what happened? What should I do? This is a very suspicious situation, and honestly, I would probably go to the police. Like, she ran off with your cat as well as your belongings and just cut town and blocked you everywhere. And now nobody knows where she's at or anything along those lines? Like, that sounds really sketchy. Also, your girlfriend stole your cat, which by the way, the original poster has had that longer than he's known his girlfriend. So for her to just take that as she's walking out the door is just really weird and super obnoxious. But also, more to the point, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this. Like, honestly, this is crazy. Your girlfriend who loved you and had a good relationship with you just gets up and leaves without any kind of warning? Like, seriously, what is going on? That is super unfair to you, and honestly, I hope this all works out in your favor. My entitled mom is fine with my brother moving to Italy, but doesn't want me to move to South Korea for some reason. And at this point, I feel completely blindsided and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so to start things out, my fiance and I have considered moving to South Korea. Personally, I don't have anything keeping me to where I live. I have lived the same boring life in my depressing small town, and I am craving something so so different. My fiancé doesn't care where we live as he doesn't have a strong preference. With our idea of moving to South Korea, my mom has had numerous meltdowns and manipulated me into telling my fiancé to stay in the US. She has even heavily suggested he applies to grad school so that he can have a better future in the United States, and even had him considering to switch majors because she didn't think that he would have a bright future with the major that he was studying. My fiancé also couldn't work due to being on a student visa. He could have worked easily in his home country, and my mom made it such a big deal that he couldn't work at the time. We have even thought about living in South Korea for a little bit of time for a few months or a few years, and I really want our future baby to spend time in South Korea. We are now thinking about the first few years of our baby's life to be in South Korea, and then when the baby reaches the age of 5, we will bring it back to the United States and have it start school here. My mom has further made that an issue and told me that I can't keep her grandchildren away from her. I'm honestly sure that she would try to bring me to court all over this and say that I'm denying her rights as a grandparent. But for this, I'm going. I am not going to give up on this dream of ours, and our baby will live sometime in South Korea. Last night, my mom's friend was over for dinner, and my mom revealed to us that my brother is thinking about buying a house in Italy and might be moving there. Now, I was completely shocked, and I said out loud, "Are you kidding me? I can't move to South Korea, but my brother can move to Italy?" My mom's friend chimed in and said, "Well, it's safer in Italy than South Korea, all due to North Korea's issues." I said to my mom's friend in a sarcastic tone, "Trust me, it's very safe in South Korea, but thanks for your concern." Well, my mom just sat there in happiness while continuing to talk about her excitement of my brother buying a house in Italy and maybe moving there eventually. So I'm Italian American, and my mom is very prideful of her Italian culture. When it comes to South Korea, my mom believes it's unsafe due to North Korea, and she ignores anything I tell her about how safe it is within the country, and that a lot of Koreans don't see North Korea as a threat. My mom is also scared that if I move there, then I will never come back to see her ever again. And yet, my brother can move to Italy. I'm truly disappointed and very sad. I had to give up my life in South Korea because of my mom's manipulation and emotional breakdowns. And my fiancé made such a big compromise just for my brother to get praise for buying a house in Italy. So am I wrong for feeling completely blindsided? What should I do? Honestly, the way your mom is acting is super toxic. She is clearly showing favoritism towards your brother and just making up ridiculous excuses as to why you can't move to South Korea. But I think you can hold on to the hope that eventually, one day, you and your partner can have your own life, and your mom will hopefully not play a role in derailing it in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not allowing my mother-in-law to come over to my house unannounced anymore, all because she has constantly overstepped my boundaries and caused a lot of problems for me and my newborn son? Here's what happened. So I've been with my husband for 3.5 years and married for just over 1. This past November, we had our first child. My husband is an only child, and his father was never in the picture, and him and his mom have never really been close. Now, for a little bit of backstory, we are both at odds with my mother-in-law, and it all started less than 24 hours after I had my son. My husband and I both told my mother-in-law and my mother that we did not want our son's birth turned into a photo opportunity. People taking pictures of me have always made me feel uncomfortable, and my son had some complications immediately after he was born, so he was rushed to an ICU. I wasn't able to see him for roughly 9 hours, and once I was allowed to go see him in the ICU, my husband went with me as this was the first time I was officially meeting my newborn son. The next thing I know is that I look up and see my mother-in-law using this opportunity as a photo op. And when I saw this, I was fuming. These were not the first pictures I wanted of my son or of my husband and I with our son. The next morning, my mother-in-law decided she wanted to come back and see our son, who is now safe and in our room. Now, I am running on maybe 2 hours of sleep, but still said I was okay for her to come along. Once she was there, I didn't really interact with her. I was just trying to rest up. And after she left, she ended up calling my husband. And this is when he decided to call her out on the photo op and how she completely violated a boundary that we clearly set. And you know what? Her response absolutely floored me. She began yelling at my husband, saying that I hate her and that I don't like her and I never have, and that I am so hateful towards her. She said her reasoning for taking the pictures was because she thought that we would want to remember that moment, and in her mind, it was a big deal, and she didn't see the point of getting upset. Once all this happened, I decided I needed to distance myself from her and just focus on my new family. And you know what? My husband agreed with doing this as well. Fast forward to about a week and a half ago, and my
My husband and son had been sick for over a week. I was out doing errands and getting groceries, and my mother-in-law asked me multiple times if I wanted anything from Sam's Club. Now, I would constantly tell her, no, but thank you. But she was doing the same thing to my husband, and he would also respond by, no, we're good, but thank you. Well, I returned home and my son was screaming. He had not slept all day, and we decided to try for a nap. My husband finally falls asleep, and I finally get my son to fall asleep as well. Maybe about 10 minutes later, there's a knock on my door. My dog goes flying and barking her head off, waking up my son. I answer the door and I say, why are you here? And my mother-in-law said that she wanted to bring me a rotisserie chicken, a trash can, and laundry detergent. I told her we already said we didn't want anything, and to not show up at our house unannounced, and that the next time she tries to give us any random stuff, I will immediately return it to her, as we don't want anything from her. Well, as you can imagine, she got angry and said that she will never come over or speak to us ever again. Then she slammed the door and walked off. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Yeah, your mother-in-law is absolutely being crazy in this situation. She's coming over unannounced, and she's clearly crossing boundaries that you very clearly set up. Like, it really shouldn't be that hard to listen to what's being said and stop trying to insert herself into the situation, all under this lie that she's helping in some kind of way. Like, I totally get it. Maybe she's excited about being a grandmother or something like that, or she wants to be involved and help out, but you know what? From the sounds of it, she has only been a hindrance. She's not respecting the fact that they are parents now, and they get to call the shots in what happens in their marriage. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your mother-in-law's acting weird, and honestly, I don't blame you for acting the way that you did. My entitled managers take away my vacation time, claiming that there's a new rule in their upcoming handbook that denies me the 4 days that I'm owed. But after doing some research and talking with other coworkers, I realized that they are lying through their teeth. So I decide to get some revenge by suing them and winning my court case, resulting in them getting fired from their jobs, as well as me getting paid thousands of dollars. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at my managers in my life. Here's what happened. So I work for a company with great pay and great benefits. And one of those great benefits was all of our vacation days. I worked there for years without performance or attendance issues. I was also an employee who would not work overtime, and I gave 100% while I was there. Each year, I would pre-plan all of my vacation days. We had to put our plans on a calendar for approval, and I wanted to receive my approval before confirming my plans. So I did everything as early as possible. I had no vacation request problems for years and did not hear of other employees having issues with their vacation time or pay. Well, one year, all of a sudden, after using all but 4 of my vacation days, management said I had no additional paid vacation time. I reviewed our online handbook, gathered my requested and approved time off, and checked my pay stubs to verify the paid vacation days that I'd taken thus far. I then presented to management all of my research. My direct manager then said that he checked, and apparently, according to them, I didn't have 4 additional vacation days. Well, that wasn't good enough, so I asked him to forward it to his manager, and his manager said the exact same thing, but I still was not satisfied, and eventually, my concerns reached the center manager. The center manager called me into a meeting, and I again presented my findings, showing that I had 4 unused vacation days left. He then began discussing changes to our vacation policy, all while making eye contact and smiling. He turned his computer around to show me the new handbook that they constructed, which would reflect the new vacation policy. But I thought to myself, wait a minute, there is an online employee handbook, yet I'm supposed to go by a new handbook not known to any of the employees? I mean, this simply does not make any sense. I politely said okay, and then I walked out. I removed my 4 days from my vacation calendar, and it was at that moment that I decided I was going to get some revenge. I then began chatting with other employees just to see the number of days that they had taken for that year, as well as the number of days that they had left. I would ask questions like, how was your vacation? How long did you stay? Are you choosing a different place to spend the rest of your vacation days? Asking questions like these and related questions allowed me to calculate the number of vacation days they used or had remaining in general. And you know what I found? I did not find one other employee having my issue with vacation time. So I waited a couple of months, and then I filed a lawsuit while working there. Other employees did not know about my lawsuit, at least not from me, but I'm sure that management absolutely knew. The lawsuit, especially during the discovery process, revealed an email chain, and the email chain showed the center manager directly asking HR all about my 4 unused vacation days, with human resources confirming in the email that I had 4 unused vacation days that that I had available. And get this, the center manager used a fictitious new handbook just to cover up his actions and other management's actions. Also, they could deny my vacation time. So fast forward, and shortly thereafter, we settled the lawsuit, and they had to pay me thousands of dollars for 4 unused vacation days. Now, of course, I had to resign, and the center manager and other management either lost their jobs, they retired, or they quit. Now, here's the thing. All I wanted was my unused paid vacation time, but what I received instead was so much more, and I'm just so glad that I was able to get back at those managers who were clearly trying to steal my time. Wow, that's honestly incredibly disrespectful, and that is so deceitful from the management to pull that kind of move. Here you are just trying to schedule out your year, and these people are like, no, you can't do that anymore because we have a new handbook that says so. It's like, what are you doing? Why would you lie to an employee just to prevent them from having any kind of time off? Like, for starters, if they have vacation days, why not just let them take it? Like, literally, that's what they're there for, and it's so weird to try and deny that. Why on earth would you lie to your employee like that? That honestly will set up a horrible precedent moving forward for literally anybody who is still working there or anybody who might work there in the future. So you know what? Good for the original poster for getting this done in the way that they did. This company absolutely deserves to have a lawsuit slapped against them because what they did is time theft. And honestly, no one deserves to be treated like that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that she hasn't been my mom since I was 5 years old? Because right now she's acting like I owe her everything all because she's my mom. But I simply could not disagree more, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. When I was 5 years old, my mother had her second child, who is my sister. We have different dads, and neither was involved when we were kids. My sister was born prematurely, and this is when my mother went from being my mom to being an almost stranger to me. She spent all her time at the hospital with my sister, and I was passed around from friends to family, and even to strangers my mother and I didn't know, because my aunt would hand me over to someone in her husband's family, or a family friend would pass me on to their friend. My sister was in the hospital for months and had many complications from being born so early, so she was one of the youngest premature babies in the hospital's history. When she started to get strong enough to go home, complications due to her stomach were found, and that required more time and more treatments. My mother was in and out of the hospital with her for the next couple of years as they performed surgeries and gave treatments when she would get sick. At that point, even when my mother was home with my sister, she would keep me somewhere else normally, and the times I was home with her, I was left alone, and her focus was always on my sister. Then, when my sister was 2 years old, she was diagnosed with leukemia, and that resulted in more treatments and more hospital visits, and just never ever seeing them. By the time I was 10 years old, my mother was okay leaving me at home while they were at the hospital, so I was all alone. It was also around this time that my teachers started to suggest that I might have dyslexia, and the school reached out to my mother, but she was too focused on my sister to do anything for me. Now, nothing changed after my sister became cancer-free, and she was less sick and needed the hospital less. My mother was so devoted to her that she didn't pay attention to me, and the both of them were basically strangers to me. I started staying with my girlfriend's family as a teenager, and my mom simply didn't care. I would only go to her house when I needed to pick up more of my clothes or more of my stuff, and when I turned 18 years old, I moved out officially and got my dyslexia diagnosis. Fast forward, and now years later, I don't really have anything to do with my mother or my sister. I don't blame my sister for any of this. It's just that no bond could form when we were younger, and she's also just a stranger to me at this point. My mother has started to have some health problems and is now turning to me for help. She told me I should be around more and doing stuff to help her out, simply because she is my mom. She also said that my sister deserves a relationship with me and accused me of punishing my sister for existing. I told her that wasn't true, but we were strangers, and that was because of my mother. I also told her that she hadn't been my mom since I was 5 years old, and she had no right to ask me to care for her when she hasn't cared for me in almost 20 years. She then called me selfish and a spoiled child who never grew up. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I think with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think the way your mom acted when you were a child, and how she basically pushed you to the wayside, all so she could send all her focus towards your sister, that in my opinion is so uncalled for. Now, don't get me wrong, I get that the younger sister had a lot of health problems. Being a premature baby, as well as having leukemia as a child, child is no joke. That is very serious, and any good parent would focus their time in helping that sister. But it really does sound like the mom basically said, okay, I only have one daughter now, and basically pushed the original poster to the side and said, nope, I'm not going to pay attention to you. Because in my mind, I really do believe that she very easily could have paid attention to both kids. She could have been available for both of them, despite the circumstances around the sister. That's just my opinion, at least. It really seems like she just did not care about you as a child, and some pretty glaring evidence of that is when you were a teenager and you basically moved out. Like you're living with your friend and your mom basically could care less. She doesn't care when you come to the house or when you leave. Like there's just nothing coming from your mom. And that alone to me is proof that the original poster is not making this up. It really sounds like the sister is healthy at this point, and there were no more health complications in their teenage years, so there is no legitimate reason for the mom to still be fixated on this kid, all while neglecting the original poster. So honestly, with all things considered, I don't blame you for the reaction that you had, and honestly, if I was in your shoes, I probably would feel the exact same way. Am I the jerk for only buying my parents stuff that cannot be shared or stolen? Because my brother and his family constantly take stuff that I buy them, and at this point, I'm getting so frustrated and I simply don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my brother, who's 32 years old, has been knocking up his wife since they were in high school. Their oldest is now 13, but they have 3 more. She is a stay-at-home mom, and he works as cleaning staff at a camp. It's pretty good money, but they waste a lot of it. They have multiple gaming systems, and the oldest 2 kids have very new iPhones. In contrast, I'm 28 years old, and I live in a loft above my parents' garage. I do not pay rent because my folks want me to save up for my future, but I do help out around the house, and I buy groceries for my parents as well as myself. My brother and his family live in the in-law suite in my parents' basement, and it was supposed to be a rental to get them some extra money for when they retire, but after my brother lost his job because he would not get vaccinated, our parents decided to let them move in. I also love to buy them gifts, but my brother and his family always needed exactly what I happened to give them. For example, I bought my mom a very colorful bag from Colombia called a mochila. It is just a woven cotton shoulder bag made with very vibrantly colored yarn. My niece, who's 9 years old, saw the bag and wanted to use it for a school project, which is when she very promptly and conveniently lost it. Another example is when I bought my father some bourbon, since he loves to have a drink after a long day. Well, my brother and his wife found it and drank it, deciding to mix it with orange juice because it had such a strong taste. So now I do other stuff. I took my mom to go see Anastasia, and I got us really good seats, and I decided that no one else was invited. I also took my dad out for a steak dinner, and then we went to a speakeasy in our city, and I treated him to a $160 cocktail. These are things my parents love doing, but they simply won't waste their money. In fact, I keep the groceries that I buy in my loft. I will make meals for my parents and have them over, or I will bring the ingredients and cook with my dad. My brother started asking why I don't leave the groceries in the freezer or the fridge or the pantry that they have access to, as well as why I stopped buying my parents gifts. He says that I'm living there for free and that I should give them more. I asked him how much he was paying them in rent or how he was contributing to the household, and he said that he was tired on the weeks that he was home and that his wife and kids were too busy to help. Now, I work a full-time job, I volunteer at a cat rescue, I do theater as well as sports as a hobby, and I still manage to help out with the yard work, the housework, as well as helping out with errands and my grandmother, who is in a locked-in facility for dementia patients. Even with my very busy schedule, I'm still able to do all of this. I pointed this out and he said that I was being a little jerk, but I responded by saying that I wasn't stupid enough to leave anything around that he or his family could try and steal. So now we are fighting and my parents are upset. His wife called me a jerk for not sharing the treats I buy for my parents, but I can only afford to buy treats for my parents and myself. I can't do that for 5 more people who do not contribute anything. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? Honestly, I do not think you're the jerk. I think your brother and your sister-in-law are being very weird, and they basically showed their hand about what they really want. They don't care about you giving gifts to your parents. They just want to get whatever you give them. They literally just want a free handout, and they want more opportunities to steal stuff from your parents. But with all things considered, I think the way you're going about doing this is honestly perfect. You're getting things for your parents that nobody can take away from them. And that's brilliant in this case because your brother and sister-in-law are just being completely unreasonable. So no, of course not, you are definitely not the jerk. They're being incredibly weird, and it's pretty obvious that they have ulterior motives. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that she needs to stop babysitting for this deadbeat friend? Because right now, this supposed friend is literally taking taking advantage of my wife. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife has a friend that has 3 kids under 6 years old, and this includes a 2-month-old infant. My wife met this woman via social media, and she had posted that she was looking for someone to watch her kids in the afternoon and evening, all while she delivered pizza. She couldn't afford to pay much more than $40 a week, so that's all my wife made to watch her kids up to 25 hours a week. My wife was going to school online at the time, so it worked out. She could do her schooling and make a few dollars on the side. After my wife went back to work, I thought she would cut ties with this lady, but you know what? I was wrong. This friend would ask my wife to babysit on occasion, all in exchange for food stamps because she'd lost her job. Probably a year ago, the friend asked my wife to watch her youngest for a few days so that she could go out of state to pick up her man. This man, by the way, is a gang member who was just released from prison. And at the time, I said no, absolutely not. I worked nights at the time and I knew I would get 0 sleep with a 2-year-old in our house. And this doesn't even mention the fact that we don't sleep in any of the bedrooms. Those go to our stepkids, and we basically sleep in what you would call a living room. This friend keeps popping up needing things. I drove her to the store the day before Thanksgiving to buy stuff, also that she could fix dinner for her kids and her man. She has started to tell my wife she needs a break and asking her to watch her older daughter, who is 3 years old, who also has behavioral issues, doesn't sleep through the night, and is just an all-around nightmare. My wife came to me and said that this friend is going crazy and needs a break, asking if we can watch the kids this weekend, which means we're gonna have to keep her overnight. Now, I protested because we only usually get 1 day a week off together, but she said that I can just go out for the day. But I said to her, look, I don't want to be kicked out of my own house, all because you insist on helping this girl out all the time. But my wife says to me that that won't work because she works through the week and can't watch her overnight. But I said, okay, who cares? If this girl would get a job, she could pay for a babysitter. Now, let me just tell you about this girl. There is a lot more to the story about her, which is why I'm so callous towards her. She is full of drama and she is a terrible mother. Well, my wife and I have argued many times about having this toxic person in our lives, and I'm honestly finally putting my foot down. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk in this situation. It sounds like your wife is getting taken advantage of, and for some reason your wife is either oblivious to what's going on, or she's just letting this all happen to her. Now, maybe this is a situation where your wife just doesn't know how to say no to this lady. Maybe she's just a naturally charitable person and she likes helping people out or whatever might be going on. But in my opinion, this is not one of those situations. This isn't a friend who needs help in a time of need. This is someone who's taking advantage of you. Also, she doesn't have to watch her kids as much. Oh, and by the way, she's only paying you $40 a week, which by the way, that's insane. You mean to tell me you're working 25 hours a week taking care of this lady's kids and she's only coughing up $40? Like, that would have been a deal breaker in my opinion at the get-go. So the fact that your wife agreed to this in the first place is insane to me. It also seems like this friend only comes to your wife because she always says yes. But I guarantee you that if the roles were reversed and your wife asked this friend for any kind of help, she would ghost your wife immediately and never talk to her again. Because from the sounds of it, and based on what the original poster has said, this supposed friend is just someone who takes from anyone around her. She doesn't actually care about this man's wife or anything like that, and honestly, it really shows. So no, you are not the jerk. It sounds like you're the only one speaking reason in this situation, and honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that it is their job to help out my sister? Because after a lifetime of dealing with her awful attitude, I'm seriously so done hanging out with her and would much rather spend time with my friends without her being around. Here's what happened. Okay, so for starters, my sister and I are not close. She has really bad social skills. She does not have any diagnosis like ADHD or autism, but she has never been good with social stuff. She's very intelligent and she's a very good problem solver, and she lacks the understanding that easy for her is not easy for everyone. She also lacks the social skills to know or even realize that complaining about other things that people are interested in, or their lack of skills or anything like that, is not how you make friends or get people to like you. This has been an issue with her since we were in elementary school, and maybe even preschool. She would win at almost every board game and would ask very bluntly why someone was bad, and that person would normally be me. She'd tell me how easy it was and I should be winning because I'm older. Our parents always bought board games like that, which suited her way more. I really hated playing against her because her attitude after winning wasn't fun or easy to be around, and she was like that with other people too. One time our aunt played with us, and she is a teacher, and my sister basically asked how how she could be a teacher when she couldn't even win a game against a 6-year-old. I never liked having to spend time with my sister, and I hated playing anything with her even more. She always wanted to spend more time with me, but I avoided that as much as I possibly could. Eventually, she started to sit in on me playing video games, and she would try to backseat game or would criticize me for taking so long to finish a puzzle, or she would literally take the controller out of my hand and do the puzzle for me. She was also like that when I had friends over too. Then she'd get upset when it was clear that we didn't want her around. I tried telling her it was rude to insult people or to interrupt others and to help without being asked, and to continue when asked to stop. She would tell me it was boring to watch someone struggle and everyone should be thanking her. Now, there are some things that she is not good at, and boy, her reactions are very strong, like temper tantrum strong. Our parents have banned the game charades because my sister could not play that to save her life and would then get so mad. She's had friends in the past, but all of them eventually drop her when they grow tired of her complaining about stuff they like. She would basically be indirectly calling them dumb. She's really lonely now because I never hang out with her. She has no friends, and even our cousins don't want to know her. My parents have been on my case about hanging out with my friends and not including my sister, and how I don't ever make time for her anymore. They said I could and should be helping her way more. Well, the other day, I told them that it was their job to help her out and not mine. They said that we're sisters, and yet I act like I don't like her, but the truth is that I don't. I don't know if I've ever liked her really, but I really don't like her now, and I hate every second I spend with her. I didn't tell my parents this, but saying that it was their job to help my sister and not mine really seemed to upset them. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Wow, your sister sounds really annoying. Let me tell you something. I've met people who act like this, and seriously, they are so hard to be around. They make everything a weird competition, and they're always trying to one-up you regardless of if you're just trying to have a good time. And the worst part about it is that there's no reason to act that way. Also, the younger sister's justification for acting like this is just completely misguided as well. Like, you've explained to her that you can't talk to people this way, but she still feels the need to try and correct people, or to basically make fun of them when they're not good at something that she is good at. So in my opinion, I think you're completely in the right. I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think this really is your parents' problem, because you have definitely tried to be around your sister. But from the sounds of it, she sounds like a nightmare of a person to put up with on a daily basis. My entitled in-laws have sold their house and are now demanding with 2 weeks notice to move into our vacation home for the next 6 months. And now, since I've been showing some resistance to this idea, my in-laws have started to guilt trip us, claiming that they have nowhere else to go, leaving us in a horrible situation. And at this point, I am so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, let me start off with some background because this is insane. My husband and I have been married for 5 years. We own a beautiful vacation home on the beach that we built ourselves, and we use it throughout the year. My in-laws, who are in their 60s, have always been a welcome guest. They would visit for a few weeks here and there, and they would contribute financially for the cost of maintenance. Well, last month, my in-laws suddenly announced that they were selling their house just so they could downsize and move into a tiny condo. Apparently, they've been secretly harboring this idea for months, never even mentioning it to me or my husband. They plan to close on the sale in 2 weeks, and then, get this, they're gonna move into our vacation home for 6 months until they figure it out. And when I heard this, I was absolutely floored. This house is our sanctuary, not a retirement home extension. We use it frequently, we have friends and family booked to visit throughout the year, and we rely on the income it generates during peak season. My in-laws, on the other hand, haven't lifted a finger on the property themselves and contributed to it only minimally. Now, my husband, bless his heart, is more understanding. He feels bad for his parents and believes that we can make it work. His in-laws, sensing my resistance, are now guilt-tripping us, claiming they have nowhere else to go and offering to pay significantly more than their usual contribution. So honestly, am I the jerk for refusing to let them move in? On one hand, I feel obligated to help family in need, but on the other hand, this feels like an outrageous imposition on our personal space and finances. So honestly, I feel so stuck and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk in this situation. Your in-laws are pieces of garbage for doing this, and they are literally springing this on you all of a sudden out of nowhere, all because they knew if they asked you in advance, you would always say no. So now they're basically saying, oh man, but we have nowhere else to go, you gotta let us in. But it's like, okay, why didn't you plan for that when you were selling your house? How is your stupidity my problem? Like, I would understand if they had nowhere else to go because because of like an emergency or some kind of like natural accident or something like that. Like maybe their house flooded or a hurricane came in and took their house out, or some other act of God that has caused their house to be unlivable. In that case, I'd be like, sure, move into the beach house, let's figure it out. But for these people to seriously sell their house and not only not tell you about it, but then come up to you and be like, we're gonna live in your vacation house for 6 months, only to then plan to be upset when you show any kind of resistance, like that is crazy to me, and that is so unacceptable. Because I guarantee you, if you let them move into that house, they will never leave. They will always find an excuse not to live by the beach, and they will always find a reason to stay in that house. Like I'm telling you right now, in my opinion, based on the way you're describing these people, this literally will be a horrible nightmare in your life if you don't put your foot down right now. And here's the thing, I understand that your husband is like, oh man, I've got to take care of family, but this is not a situation where family is in need of anything. Like the original poster has even gone on to say that they have looked at this vacation home as a fantastic place to live for some kind of retirement. And if that is not some kind of like big red flag, I don't know what is. So in my opinion, I think you are completely in the right. I think the way your in-laws are acting is very intentional and very calculated, because I guarantee you the second they move into that vacation home, those people are never gonna leave. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not letting my friend join a plan that he previously rejected? Because right now, I'm kind of feeling guilty, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 22-year-old male, and I made a plan to go to this concert happening in my city. I've never gone to a concert before, but finally there was a good concert happening soon, and I had money to buy tickets as well. I asked my friends if they wanted to go with me, as this is something I've always wanted to do, but all of them said no for whatever reason they could think of. Now, I asked another group of friends that I have, who aren't my primary group of friends, but I hang out with them quite a bit as well. Most of them said okay, as they also had not been to a concert before, and we all agreed and decided to go. In that second group, however, one of the guys was making excuses like my other friends, making stupid reasons that sounded like he just didn't want to come along, which is something that I experienced with my first group of friends. Now, at this point, I was pretty annoyed at all these guys making stupid excuses, as if they can't just tell me properly that they don't want to come along. So I said to myself, screw it, and I bought tickets with the ones who said yes. Now, a few days later, guys from both my primary group and the other dude from my second group started telling me something like, oh, sorry bro, we didn't realize you actually wanted to go. Why didn't you tell us properly? Can we come now? And by the way, just to be clear here, I asked these guys multiple times, and I was either ignored or given stupid excuses. Now, the concert tickets are mostly booked, and the chances of us getting tickets together wouldn't be possible. And the guy from the second group started telling me that he really wanted to come along now, and asked me to contact the site and ask if there are any available seats in the same stand that we booked in already. Now, I'm already pretty reluctant, because this guy has been annoying me by being so ignorant about this plan, but I decided to contact anyways via mail, and I did so, and apparently there's like one spot left. Now, I could either tell my friend and get him on board, or I could just not tell him about the reply. I normally wouldn't, but that day I decided not to tell him. I felt like these were the consequences of his own actions, and that I shouldn't need to go out of my way to help when he was being such a little jerk about it. Furthermore, if I do help him get the ticket, my other friends from my primary group would find out and could probably start thinking as to why I didn't invite them first, and instead invited this other guy. So I decided to tell neither, and I just didn't do anything. So now nobody extra will be coming along, and I'll now be only going with people who wanted to go in the first place. So honestly, does all of this make me a jerk? What should I do? I don't think this makes you the jerk at all. Literally all your friends are adults. It's not your job to explain that yes, I'm being serious, and yes, I want to go to this concert. Like from the sounds of it, they were being like super immature and like super weird about it, and so I completely understand you being like, okay, I'm gonna ask another group. Because in my opinion, if you're gonna go to a concert with a group of friends, at least go with a group who actually wants to be there, and not with people who are just gonna make your life miserable the entire time. So in my opinion, I don't think you did anything wrong, and I think that if they really wanted to go to that concert, they would figure it out themselves. My fiance wants to continue splitting bills evenly between us, even though he experienced a significant pay raise. And I'm honestly at this point very frustrated, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my fiance and I established an agreement when we moved in together. He handles the rent and I take care of the utilities, and we both take care of our own personal bills. Our bank accounts are separate, but we share a phone plan. He covers his credit card and company vehicle expenses, while I handle my car payment, my insurance, and utilities, as well as groceries and debts. We've been together for 9 years, and our incomes used to be relatively equal, with me working overtime to match his earnings when I had a lower paying job. Over time, our incomes fluctuated due to various circumstances. I worked full-time while attending school, and he experienced a period without a job. Throughout, I've shouldered the majority of household responsibilities, probably 95%, including dinner. Now our careers have stabilized. He secured a higher paying job through a friend's recommendation, with a salary about $10,000 more than his previous one. He worked hard to get subsequent promotions, and his salary ended up being triple mine, with quarterly bonuses factoring into it. Eventually, I also landed a better paying job, and now his income is about 2 times as much as mine. Throughout all of his pay increases, our financial agreement remained unchanged. Recently, during a discussion about wedding expenses, I mentioned my lack of disposable income this paycheck, all due to paying off debt from booking a wedding vendor. I explained the challenges of budgeting for daily expenses with minimal leftover, and how he wouldn't understand, because once he pays rent out of one check, he essentially has the second check, and his bonuses are disposable income. His response shocked me. He said to me, "Find a better job if you can't pull your weight." Now honestly, I feel disrespected, especially considering our history and the fact that I've been there during tough times. I confronted him about what seemed like a shift in his mentality. I thought he had a provider mentality, and the only reason we were 50-50 was because of our respective incomes. I assume he thinks it's not fair to bust his butt to get raises, and for me to expect more. He must be feeling sorry, but despite his attempts to be nice since then, buying food and offering gestures, I'm left feeling unsure about our relationship. We are approaching our wedding in 9 months, and I'm contemplating individual therapy just to discuss with someone that doesn't know us. I'm also questioning if this is a red flag for our future. I worry about potential expectations regarding work, as well as childcare responsibilities once we have kids. I do know his mom didn't work growing up, and he has previously told me that his family struggled because of it, so I am a bit empathetic. I don't expect him to take over all of my bills all of the sudden, but if we shared an account, or even if he took over one utility bill, it would take some of the stress off of me. And honestly, right now I'm wondering if I'm overreacting, or if this situation calls for reconsidering the wedding. After 9 years, it's not a simple decision, but I feel like he views our relationship as somewhat transactional. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, it kind of seems like you need to talk to him and be like, "Hey, I need some help with this." It seems like you have a lot on your plate, and I kind of get the vibe that if he just stepped up to the plate and helped out, things would get easier for you. So in my opinion, talking to him and figuring this out wouldn't be a bad idea. And hopefully when you do, things work out for the best. Am I the jerk for not inviting our homeless sister on a family trip, all because I simply want to break from her as well as her kid? Here's what happened. My husband is very close to his family. His parents are awesome, and we've spent a lot of time with them over the years that we've been together. He is close to his older sister, who for the most part I've also had a good relationship with. When I got pregnant with my first child, my sister-in-law wanted us to have children together, so she very quickly jumped into a relationship with a man that she met online. Within a year, they had squandered over $200,000 she had received in a settlement on expensive rental homes, a very fancy car and new wardrobes, as well as a half a dozen or so trips. He also had a significant substance problem, which created a lot of debt. Shortly after I had my first kid, she was pregnant, and our children are about a year apart. Finally, this year, after 3 years, she left her boyfriend with a significant amount of debt, a toddler, as well as nowhere else to go. She moved in with my in-laws until she could find a place to live. It's been over 6 months, and she still continues to waste money frivolously, isn't working towards finding a new home, and has been relying on them to provide free full-time care. This is taking a major toll on them, and means they are often too tired to spend time with our grandchildren. Both my in-laws and children lament this lost time, but they are kind of stuck until my sister-in-law gets back on her feet. A few months ago, we came into a small amount of money, and most of which we used for home repairs and some for savings. My husband offered to loan his sister first and last for a nice but modest first-floor apartment, but she declined because she wouldn't want to live in a dump and wants a high-end condo instead. But the offer is still on the table if she chooses. Now, last week, my boss offered me some unexpected PTO. My husband suggested that we take our kids on a beach vacation, and I suggested that maybe we could take his parents. They would get a much needed break, and our kids would get the time together they miss. They were elated and they agreed. Well, my sister-in-law is furious at not being invited and suggested that we use the money we offered her to be used to pay for her trip. But we said no. The thing is, not only do we just want some alone time with my in-laws and kids, but she also has a habit of leaving me with her child for lengthy periods of time while she goes to smoke or do other things. I understand being a mom or single mom is a lot of work, but I'm a mom too, not just a free babysitter. So are we being jerks for dictating what that money is for? What should we do? I do not think you're the jerk at all, because honestly, this is your money. You get to decide what you want to do with it, and no one's going to tell you how to spend it. Also, you're under no obligation to invite her or even pay for her trip. Like, if she wants to dig into her own pockets for once and pay for her own trip, then by all means go for it. But for her to expect you to pay for it all because the money's available, instead of using that money to get a condo or some kind of like one-bedroom apartment, honestly just speaks volumes to the type of person that your sister-in-law really is. And I think you're completely justified to say no and not allow her to come on this trip. My boyfriend's mother wants to live with us permanently, even after me and my boyfriend get married. And right now, I'm seeing no resistance from my boyfriend with this idea, and I feel very stuck and unsure about what's gonna happen, and I now seriously don't know what to do. So me and my boyfriend have known each other since 2018. I'm 25 years old and he is 28 years old. We've been in a relationship since the past 4 years, and I moved to Canada from India around 1.5 years ago, and he moved around 2 years ago. Our relationship has been ideal. We both love each other, we travel, we have fun. I do see my future with him, and I want to get married to him in the next 1 to 2 years, and he wants to as well. Now, there are a couple of issues that we are facing. His dad passed away when he was in college because of an accident, and he doesn't have any siblings. It is just him and his mom. His mom used to work, but left her office because she wanted to move to Canada just so she could live with him permanently. Now, my boyfriend used to think that I will live with him and his mother at his house after our marriage, but I made him understand around 2 years ago that I like being independent and I like my privacy, and I don't see myself living with his mother permanently all my life. I know how important his mother is to him, so I propose that when we get married, we move to a different house that is nearby to his mother so he can still look after her while we have our own life and our own privacy. He liked the idea and understood where I was coming from. Well, his mother came to Canada on a super visa 10 days ago, and it hasn't been very good. They had the marriage conversation, and apparently she doesn't like me and my family. We are both from very different religions, and she absolutely hates the idea of living in a different house than my boyfriend after marriage. Even though my boyfriend moved out of their house in India after the 12th grade, and they both have been living alone in India, meeting on weekends and holidays. She thinks that my boyfriend is throwing her away and doesn't care about her. My boyfriend and I also have plans to move to the United States later on. Also, we can have better software engineering opportunities. When he told her that even if she lives with him now, she can't move to the US permanently because of visa issues, and that she can only live 6 months at a time. Well, she told him to let go of the USA plans and to stay in Canada with her. So now I don't know what to do. I don't get why living in a different house sounds so bad to her. It will be the same city, probably like 10 to 15 minutes away at max, and I don't even mind if she is living with us for the whole 6 months in the United States, or even if she lives for some months with us in Canada. I am not trying to be insensitive, but I just don't see myself living with him and his mother forever. But I also don't want this to be the end of our relationship. We both love each other too much, and my boyfriend is not the issue. He understands where I'm coming from and wants to do the right thing. He gets that we will be more happy living alone on our own, but doesn't want to throw away his mother. So honestly, I'm at such a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, I know you say that your boyfriend is not the issue, but in my opinion, he absolutely is. First of all, you're not crazy for not wanting to live with your mother-in-law for the rest of your life. Like, that seems like a pretty reasonable reaction in my opinion, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. It's not that you're throwing them away or you don't care about them. Like, of course you do. That's not part of the equation in this instance. Instead of this being a situation where you don't like the mother-in-law and you don't want her around, in my opinion, this is more of a situation about privacy than anything else. If I was going to get married to my partner and I knew this was part of the package deal, where he would be expecting his mom to live with us even after we get married, I would definitely be very hesitant in moving forward. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't marry him, but I do think it's important to consider what's actually happening right now. Because in my opinion, if you don't put your foot down now, then this is going to spiral out of control in a way that you really don't want to deal with. yourself. And I really think that that line in the sand really needs to come from your boyfriend and not from you. You can certainly voice your opinion, but at the end of the day, this is your boyfriend's mom, and he really needs to be the one to say, no, you can't live with us. Because honestly, this sounds like an awful thing to let slide in your relationship. And I just know that I would not be happy if I decided to go this route. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that she is the last person I would ever want my wife to be like as a parent? Because right now she is getting on my last nerve, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. My sister is 8 years older than me, and she has 5 kids while my wife and I only have 1 kid so far. I don't have the best relationship with my sister, and we don't interact all that often. At best, we might see each other 5 times a year, and our number of interactions vary. The reason I feel this way about my sister is that she has a huge superiority complex, and she also likes to rule over other people. She's been like that since we were kids, and being so much older than me, she always felt like she could tell me what to do, or that I had to emulate her. It used to bother her so much that we were nothing alike. Things got so much worse after my wife and I became parents. My sister has never actually wanted her kids to know me that well, and she kept them away for the most part, and even if we were around each other, she kept them very close to her. She said it was because I was too disrespectful of her. Despite this, she feels that she has the right to try and pressure my wife and I to parent her way. My wife quit breastfeeding after it started to impact her mental health, and I was so glad. I remember our parents were so worried about my sister with her oldest 2 because she was driving herself to the brink by forcing it when she struggled. One of our parents used to stay the night when her husband was working nights because they were so worried about her. She even threatened to sue our parents and her doctor over the suggestion of introducing formula. She accused them of trying to make her a bad mother, and this is despite the fact that she ignores her other kids when she's like that. Now, I never wanted my wife to end up like that, so I was happy when she put her mental health first. My sister tried to shame her, but I quickly stepped in and I put a stop to her. I even talked over her until she quit opening her mouth, and that honestly took several minutes just to do. This was at our parents' house, and she tried to approach my wife afterwards, but my wife simply walked away. Once I heard my sister spewing more garbage, I told my parents that we needed to leave, but they actually made her leave instead. My sister tried to get in touch with my wife via social media, but they aren't social media friends, and my wife has DMs set to private. We then saw each other at Christmas, and this time she started in on us for cuddling our child too much, and because our child is almost 1 year old, she felt that it was too big to be constantly giving affection to. She didn't get to say everything because I stopped her again, and our parents told her to leave if she couldn't behave. Well, she hated being shut out, so she approached me and told me she is trying to help my wife be a better mom and to be more like her. She told me she's the best kind of example for my wife to follow, but I told her I pitied her if she actually thought that was true, because she is the last person that I would want my wife to emulate as a parent. Well, as you might be able to guess, my sister freaked out and I walked away from her, but she showed up several more times calling me disrespectful and saying that I have always treated her like garbage. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your sister is incredibly intrusive, and she really does come off as very narcissistic. Like she's trying to tell you and your wife how to manage your child. Meanwhile, she's trying to act like this perfect example of how to be a mother. And it's like, what are you talking about? That is definitely not true. So good for you for putting your foot down, because this behavior has seriously gone on long enough, and the way your sister was acting is completely inappropriate. My entitled mother ruins my wedding, storming out of it with all of her family after she didn't get enough attention for how the wedding was set up. But despite the fact that she did nothing to help out with this wedding, she still feels entitled to all of the praise and the glory. And I'm honestly just so done with her, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. When I had my wedding 5 years ago, we decided to host it at my wife's mother's house. We dressed up the garden and it looked magical. We were able to have a stunning garden wedding with about 100 guests, and it was relatively cheap. On the big day while getting set up, my entitled mother was buzzing around making a complete nuisance of herself, trying to change how tables were arranged and allocated, and bothering both my wife and I while we were getting ready for the ceremony. Our friend, who was the unofficial manager of the wedding, was doing her best to keep her satiated while also keeping her from bothering the brides. When it came time to speeches, I made mention of people who specifically helped and people who were part of the wedding party. My sister was mentioned as she was part of the wedding party, and my mother-in-law was also mentioned for partially funding the wedding as well as hosting it at her house. She also invested a lot of time and a lot of effort. But in the end, my entitled mother did not get mentioned, mostly because she did not help. If anything, she was hindering a lot of our progress, and honestly never did anything to support us. When it became clear that she was not getting mentioned, her family started shouting at me from across the garden, reminding me to somehow mention my mother. Out of surprise and shock, I made a quick mention, but I honestly had no idea what to even say. It simply made no sense to mention her in the first place. Well, shortly after, she left in tears, and she took her entire extended family with her, which was about 1/4 of the entire guest list. I mean, most of them didn't even say goodbye. It was a devastating amount of drama for what should have been a magical day. My dad, who is divorced from my mom, handled it very well and comforted the both of us. And you know what? I don't regret not mentioning her even a little bit. All it did was highlight that she can't be trusted to participate in our lives in any important or meaningful way. The relationship has never been the same since, especially since she outright refused to apologize to my wife, even trying to compare her behavior with my wife being withdrawn at her family gatherings, since for some reason the entire extended family tends to pretend that she doesn't exist. It's honestly so bizarre. But with all things considered, I'm just glad that my wife still loves me despite how insane my entitled mother truly is. Wow, what an awful way to treat you at your wedding. Like, here you are getting married and you're trying to set everything up perfectly. Meanwhile, your mom is literally trying to move things around and basically change up your wedding in such a way where she's just being a nuisance to everybody around her. Like, you worked hard on this as well as your mother-in-law and your wife. So I completely agree with you when you're like, wait a second, why should I be thanking my mom for something that she didn't help with? I mean, just look at how she reacted when you didn't mention her in some kind of meaningful way. She storms off crying and then her entire extended family walks out with her. Like, it sounds like she didn't actually care about the wedding, but instead just wanted attention. And that, in my opinion, is honestly so disrespectful. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My job schedules me for work despite the fact that I told them I wasn't available. And after feeling so disrespected and so absolutely ignored, I decided to take matters into my own hands by resigning on the spot and handing in my key. And as a result, the owners started to have an infighting conflict between them, and with all things considered, I feel very satisfied walking away from this toxic job. Here's what happened. Okay, so I want to start off by saying that I quit my job. In August, I was hired as a full-time server for a new restaurant. It's an upscale Mexican place with genuinely good food and drinks, and I was excited to work there. It is owned by 3 brothers. The first one runs the server staff, the second one runs the finances, and the other mostly runs the supermercado next door. During my interview, I mentioned that I would be a full-time student come January, and my availability would drop to 2 shifts a week. In October, I was promoted to a key holder position, and I became the primary closer. I agreed to 3 closings a week with a shift lead, base pay, and more responsibilities. I reminded them that in January, my availability was going to change, but they said I could keep those shifts as lead shifts for the most income possible while I was a student. From October to the end of December, I closed 5 nights a week almost every single week. The money was great, but I was starting to burn out. 2 weeks ago, I noticed a catastrophic payroll error. I have since received about $750 in back pay, and our finance manager has redesigned the system to make sure that this never happens again. He is a good dude, and we have a good working relationship, and this fact will be important later on. On Monday, the servers received a series of extremely harsh and unprofessional text messages, all coming from one of the owners. One of the text messages stated that if you weren't available for the slow shifts, you wouldn't get scheduled for any of the busy shifts. Now, at this point, I'm not worried. I've had multiple conversations where I've been assured by more than one owner that I'm in the clear. Well, that is until yesterday. The schedule gets posted and I'm on it. And I think to myself, okay, well, this is interesting. I texted the shift lead who does the schedule, and she says she put me on it, but it was changed before it was approved and posted, which I find even more interesting. I texted the owner asking for clarification around the new scheduling policy, and I was then left on red. School started and I'm a week into classes on a giant new campus I've never been to. This is stress I simply do not need. Everyone has a breaking point, and mine is when I go above and beyond and it is not recognized. So I decided to write a scathing letter denouncing the profits over people model and the lack of professionalism and dropped off my key. 2 hours later, I get a call from the finance guy, but I decide not to answer. He He then leaves a voicemail, and I can tell he is lightly panicking. He wants to know if I'm willing to have a conversation and reassures me that I am an excellent employee. So I called him back and we talked about it for about 20 minutes. And it's right then that I find out that the owners did not decide on text messages together. The boys are fighting, and he asked if there's anything he could do to mend this relationship, and I simply told him no. I also told him that transparency about who decided the content of the text messages would really go a long way. He was nothing but apologetic and very sincere, and honestly, with all things considered, it honestly felt incredibly amazing. Good for the original poster for standing up for themselves and stepping away from a job that clearly did not respect them. Sure, they gave you a key holder position, but at the cost of them literally not listening to a single concern you have. You made it very clear that there's no way you can be on the schedule as much as you used to, and this all goes back to you having school in January. Like seriously, how could these guys get this wrong? So I guess this shows that if you have multiple owners for an establishment and they're not on the same page about what's happening, then there's definitely going to be a problem. And the three brothers who own this restaurant in this story are the shining example of how not to run a business. An entitled Karen loses her mind after I go in front of her at the emergency room, and I've honestly never seen anybody more angry in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so for context, one night at about midnight in August of 2023, I suddenly felt weak in the knees and I had to hold on to things to get around, or I would uncontrollably lose my balance. I fell to my bedroom floor when getting out of the bed to feed my cat, and when I opened my eyes, I had double vision. My mom said my pupils were tiny dots, and I felt an extreme aura around my head, and I felt nauseous and I had muscle spasms. I did not know what was happening, and it scared me a lot. I tried going back to sleep, but really, I wanted to go to the emergency room because I felt like I was not going to make it through the night. The next morning, the mystery symptoms had subsided, and I was laying on the couch watching television, while my mom had gone to an appointment to get her car fixed. I told her I was fine before she left, but an hour later, I started feeling the symptoms again. My friend that had stayed the night tried to assure me that it was just the bottle of twisted tea I had the previous day, but I wasn't convinced that a 12-ounce bottle of 5% alcohol volume would make me feel like I was not going to make it. I mean, I am not that much of a lightweight. So anyways, I called my mom and I told her I wanted to go to the ER, and she said to have me call my dad and ask him to take me instead. So I called my dad and he took me to the hospital. And I'm really sorry for the intro, but I promise you this is all very relevant. So we arrive at the emergency room, and after I check in, I see a lady with her 4 or 5-year-old son who apparently had a skin rash. Now, for context, he wasn't in anaphylactic shock or anything like that. It's just a case of dermatitis from an allergen or something like that. It really was not something that you needed to go to the ER for. So at first, this lady seemed fine when we engaged in some small talk, but it only spiraled from there. Apparently, she had been waiting for over an hour and it was beginning to show. Her kid was getting antsy and was scratching his arm where the rash was located, and the Karen went from talking to her kid nicely, asking him not to scratch his arm, to straight up demanding that he's gonna stop scratching it right now. So I could tell that her Karen meter was certainly rising. Then her kid started running around and laughing, and she told him to sit down in an ugly tone, and of course he absolutely didn't. He then took his shoes off and continued running with his mother, and a couple employees were chasing him around the room. And it's right about here that this Karen's temper was at a critical level, so she shouted out, "If you don't sit down right now, we are leaving." And this was as if he was misbehaving at a toy store or something like that. Like seriously, if your kid's rash is such an emergency, why would you threaten to leave? Eventually, I get called into the office, and this entitled Karen jumps in front of me and starts yelling out, "No, I was here first." Now, the doctor was bewildered, and he signaled for me to keep going. So I inch past this Karen, and I watch her from the office. She just continued yelling and stuck her finger in the doctor's face. She was saying, "My son is having a severe reaction. I have been waiting for over an hour, and I was here first. If I don't get called in the next 20 minutes, I'm complaining." Now, honestly, I wish I could have recorded this, but I was afraid I would get in trouble, and I was afraid to look at my phone in case of my double vision returning, but regardless, I will always look back on that day and laugh extremely hard. Yeah, the Karen in that story was being completely weird. First of all, if you're gonna take your kid to the emergency room, then trust me, it better be an emergency. So for him to be running around and laughing as if it's not an emergency, and then you threatening to be like, "Oh, we're gonna leave if you don't sit down." It's like, for starters, he probably doesn't even need to be there, but also he probably doesn't want to be there, because I really believe that kid was probably fine, and whatever was going wrong with his skin was probably not bad enough to go to the hospital for. Am I the jerk for walking away from my sister-in-law after after she mentioned and tried to bring up my adoption once again. Because right now I am really frustrated, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. So my sister-in-law as well as myself are both adopted, and this is my husband's younger sister. My sister-in-law was adopted as an infant, and I was adopted through foster care at the age of 7 officially, but I found my family at 6 years old. My sister-in-law brought up us both being adopted before and asked questions that I didn't mind answering. She hadn't realized I was adopted through foster care, and for a little while, she didn't think that we could talk things through because we came from very different adoption stories. A couple years ago, my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law reached out to her birth family and made contact. Then they started to speak about the unfairness. The adoption severed all legal ties to her birth family, and from that point on, the three of them held this view that the sister-in-law should have always been in the family, but adoption was not the right thing to do. At least not adoption as in the United States standard of adoption. Once this realization was made, my sister-in-law decided that she needed to help me open my eyes. My husband told her to leave me out of it, and I would never feel different about my adoption. My sister-in-law didn't like that, and she went behind my husband's back so that we could supposedly talk it out. I told her that she would never change my mind, and I would always be glad that I was adopted. I told her that my only wish is to forget everything to do with my birth family. She told me that I lost all connection to them, but I told her that that was good, and I wanted no connection to those people. She told me that I should be glad to know who I really am, but I told her that being a garbage stain is not who I am. For people who will wonder, that is what I was called for the first 5 years of my life while I was with my birth relatives, and this includes my birth mother. I told her knowing them does not mean I know who I am. I didn't even know my own legal name until I went into foster care. We took a time out for a while, but it meant missing out on family functions on her side, so we decided that we would have minimal contact, with my husband stepping in when he's there too. But during a family wedding, my sister-in-law took a moment while I was alone to approach me and start to bring up adoption again, so I just walked away without saying a word. I ignored her and I acted like she was not there. Well, this bothered her a lot. My mother-in-law and father-in-law told her that she should maybe let up and leave me be, but she has really come after my husband, saying I was rude and had no right to walk away from her like that. A couple of extended family members said that the sister-in-law was complaining so much that it literally spoiled the wedding, and that I should have handled the incident better. My husband said I did nothing wrong, but I hate the added drama from it. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your sister-in-law is acting insane. Like, here's the thing, you both had different adoption situations, so for her to be like, wow, you need to see things from my point of view, that in my opinion is really weird, and honestly, it is so uncalled for. And you would think after the first time of you being like, hey, I don't want to talk about this, as well as you basically shutting her down at like every pass, like that alone would be enough for her to catch on and be like, okay, she doesn't want to talk about it, right? Only to then keep bringing this up at a wedding of all places. Like, come on. This lady sounds obnoxious, and it's almost like she's trying to force you to see things the way that she does now. That is seriously unfair for you, and I'm so sorry you're dealing with that. But I can confidently say that if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Because her behavior and entitled attitude in general is completely uncalled for, and you definitely do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not wanting to go back home to take care of my sick mother after she and her boyfriend kicked me out of the house the day after my high school graduation? Because right now, my mom's boyfriend is guilt-tripping me hard, and I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, it was the day after graduation when my mom and her boyfriend told me that now that I was an adult, I had to move out and find a place of my own. Although it was unexpected, my mom and I's relationship changed drastically when her new boyfriend moved in. I tried to make a good impression because I wanted her to be happy, but the guy just seemed to have an issue with me. He convinced my mom to start charging me rent because I had a part-time job while still in school, even though he was jobless and living off my mom. He would go into my room, go through my stuff, and use some of my things without my permission. He even broke my laptop after using it without asking me first, but my mom saw nothing wrong with his behavior and always took his side. She would yell at me anytime I would complain about how I didn't like him invading my privacy, and he seemed pretty pleased with himself when my mom kicked me out. Now, I didn't have enough to get a place, so I survived by sleeping on friends' couches as much as I could, all the way up until they got tired of me and I had to sleep outside at times. Thankfully, I was able to get a second job through someone that I knew, and I was able to save up, and I just moved into a new place at the beginning of this month. And this this was after months of not having anywhere to call home. Well, a few days ago, my mom's boyfriend reached out to me. Apparently, my mom had a stroke, and he tried guilting me into moving back to help her out because he got a job opportunity and has to move. Well, I declined, and I told him that unfortunately, I'm too busy trying to be an adult, and it doesn't look like I can take time off of that schedule to do that. Well, when I said that, he hung up the phone, and now I'm left wondering if I'm the jerk in this situation, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, this is a classic case of mess around and then find out, because your mom and her boyfriend definitely kicked you out of the house when you had literally nowhere else to go. She reaped what she sowed, and this is literally her own problem right now. And you know what? I bet the boyfriend only wants you to come back to that house because he wants you to take care of her so he can dump her. He seems like the kind of person who would try to do that, and honestly, I would not blame you for not wanting to be around that. So truly, I'm so sorry for how you got treated, but with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk for staying away. Because if they want to throw you out and kick you out of their lives, then you have every right to believe them and try and keep your distance. My son inherited a $70,000 car from his late grandfather, but as a result, the entire family is floored, furious that the rest of the grandkids didn't get something of equivalent value, causing me as his parent to rethink the entire situation. So now I'm requesting that my son sell this car off so that we can divide the money equally amongst all the grandkids. And if my son refuses to do so, I'm considering taking away his college money that I saved up for him and dividing that up amongst his sisters and cousins. And at this point, I'm trying to understand if I'm the jerk in this situation or if I'm justified in my reasoning, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so my father passed away in December. He owned a classic car, and I believe it's a 50s Chevy Bel Air. My son, who is 17 years old, is the only grandson he ever had. I have one sister who has 2 daughters, and I have 2 daughters along with my son. So there are 5 grandkids all in total. My dad was never much of a girls guy. He always got along with the boys more than the girls. Him and my son were very close. So when we found out that he left the car to my son in his will, we were all definitely astonished. The rest of the grandkids got $4,000 each, but the vehicle is valued at over $70,000. When my sister found out, she was livid. And you know what? I'm unhappy about this as well. It's just blatantly unfair to his 4 other grandkids. I don't understand the legality of the situation because it was left to him, but he is currently underage. The car is currently held at my mom's house, and I don't know how to force him to sell it, but I think that is what should happen, and the money can be decided equally amongst the grandkids. That's honestly the way it should be. Now, my son is very upset about this. He says grandpa left him the car, so it is his car. I have money saved up for his college, and I'm almost considering telling him that his college money will be divided up amongst his sisters and cousins if he refuses to sell the car. So am I the jerk for wanting my son to sell this car? What should I do? Yes, 100% you are definitely the jerk. To start things off, I cannot believe you gave your son an ultimatum. You're seriously considering saying, oh, you have to sell the car or else all your college money is going to your siblings and cousins. Like seriously, what is wrong with you? That is so uncalled for. Like I get that you guys are upset about this and you're really furious that the grandfather left this expensive car with your son, but that is legitimately the truth of the matter. He left it with him, so the car literally is his. So if you want to be mad at anybody, be mad at your father for doing this to all of the grandkids. It is not your son's fault that he inherited this car. Like seriously, why is it so bad to just let him have this car? If he wants to sell it, then he can do that himself. But to deny him this inheritance all because you think it's unfair, that in my opinion is obscene, and that definitely makes you the jerk. Because I know if I was in your son's shoes and my parents tried to pull this on me, I would be utterly furious and so betrayed, especially considering the relationship your son had with his grandfather. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Am I the Jerk, and also check out Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.